manager, what his responsibilities are, who he would answer to, if anybody, other than Amy Adams Strunk. So, when you look at this dialogue that now the NFL seems to, have obviously in place, it makes you wonder, what will the Titans do in finding that new general manager and the language that they use to describe what his job description is.
I think overall, the headline, if you're a Titans fan and you're not super in the weeds with this, is that's good news for the Titans.
Yeah. I mean, because they need as many candidates to, I think, apply for this job or interview for this job. They need, the best of the best.
It gives them a better pool of candidates to pick from for the GM position. I'm just curious, and we will probably not get answers on a lot of this until a new GM is hired and we hear in an official capacity from decision makers. But I'm curious if this job description does change the process, right? Change what the job description actually is. Like if the NFL has an impact over this. But clearly, I think Ian Cunningham is somebody who is in the final one or two. And I don't know if you guys have a top choice yet on the one person that stands out most to you, but considering the amount of interviews that Ian Cunningham has done, I'd say he's probably top of my list, to be honest with you. And
I think it was also reported by Breer that he, I think, had pretty much the Arizona Cardinals GM job, but he turned it down. We know that was taken over by former Titans exec Monty Austin for it.
Yep.
So he has actually interviewed for quite a few positions. I know he interviewed for the Commanders GM job as well. So he is definitely a hot commodity.
Cardinals, Titans, Chargers, the teams he's officially talked to before. So we wondered yesterday, can the Titans attract a top candidate with a position that still answers to Chad Brinker? If Ian Cunningham takes the job, then the answer is yes.
Right. And maybe that has to do with it being, in the position they're in with the number one overall pick, which you said, Will, always would help a situation like that. I think so.
I really do. 615-737-1045 is our number if you want to jump in on the discussion. It is interesting. I wonder just what the organization has learned through going through so many interviews, like how much Chad Brinker has been ready with a Rolodex of people for a job like this. Because 2 years ago, Chad Brinker was an assistant general manager.
Right.
And now he is the president of everything on the football side of things. Like, he very quickly got himself into a decision-making position. And I know Coach Mack has always told us that anyone who's ever been a coach in the NFL has had a Rolodex and a list to say, if I get to this position, ... I will have this name, this name, this name, this name, this name ready to go. It's really the first test in Chad Brinker's Rolodex to see how much he can persuade one of his buddies in a high-ranking position to come with him.
Yeah, I think he also has his own ideas of what it takes to put together a good system here that works, right? Mm-hmm. But through all these interviews, I think that he's also collecting information that he may not have even been thinking about. Because every conversation that he has with someone that is a possible candidate, I'm sure they're bringing something to the table that he finds intriguing. And maybe that then becomes a part of his process to say, you know what, I like what he was saying there and the direction he would go. Maybe that's also something I would like to have in the bylines of this position. What you said was good. What you said was good. In other words, you're collecting a lot of different conversations, a lot of information from a lot of different conversations to kind of put together what you would see as a complete situation that you think would work for this franchise. Those ideas then sometimes you put to fruition with whoever else becomes part of this franchise, and those things work.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly laid out the vision, in that piece of Jimmy Wyatt that he spoke about of what he's looking for. So, coming into this, he knew exactly, what he wanted to go search for. But you're right, Brad. You bring in a plethora of candidates and you do kind of pick their brain in a way. You can get some ideas, right? That, oh, yeah, this actually, even if you don't hire that person, maybe you think, okay, this is something that we would love to incorporate. Because all these people that are interviewing, they're all very good at what they do, else they wouldn't be getting interviewed. And they all probably have a little bit different things to bring to the table. But essentially, you want the one person who's going to overall fit what you're thinking, but could come with some ideas of their own.
I just remember, obviously, it's a different position in terms of head coach and GM, but A big feather in Mike Vrabel's cap when he was head coach year one was Matt LaFleur being his offensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
Can you essentially pull that kind of candidate now as general manager within the organizational restructuring? Like, do you have an opportunity now to do something similar in a front office perspective and persuade someone, whether that's ownership, whether that's the money side of it, whether that is Chad Brinker and his ability to persuade somebody like, no, like, we've got a plan and you want to be a part of this, despite the fact that it might not be a traditional general manager role you would get somewhere else. At the end of the day, people's skills matter and money matters. And I know not all jobs are created equally, but if the Titans can find a way to do that, this could work.
All right, let me ask you guys this. Besides the obvious, this being one of 32 jobs on the planet, right? Mm-hmm. What would be some attractive qualities about being a front office person here in Tennessee? In other words, what would I have to sell you if you were a candidate to come here? Someone that's highly qualified, that's got great credentials. What would I say to sell you to come here to be a part of this organization?
I think the obvious is first and foremost what Will's been preaching is the number one overall pick. So that's a given,
huge.
right? So that's the biggest attraction, 100%. The one other thing I'll say, and this is also betting on yourself. And some of us, we know, we bet on ourselves all the time and we don't fear failure in the moment. A lot of these executives that want to climb the ladder, they have a chance to put their name right now on something that's real fresh and that's, going to be contributed to them and the other people on the staff. If it does go in the right direction, they can stamp their name on this and possibly elevate themselves even more if it works out. But on the other side of that, there's a massive chance at failure and, getting ousted. But I believe that's why it's got to be the right person to take this job that's betting on themselves too, to attach themselves to this Titans franchise that right now is kind of resetting.
Yeah, I think people, and I don't think it's us, I think it's more like the average fan doesn't consider how different these executives and coaches are from mere mortals. I don't think they fear failure in the way the average human being does. There is a level of healthy narcissism you have to do these jobs where you consistently tell yourself, no, I'm going to be the one that fixes it. Mm-hmm. And it's why really good coaches have to follow legends all the time. Unfortunately, that's not the case here, but it's why guys like Kalen DeBoer want to follow Nick Saban. It's why, you wanted to follow John Calipari at Kentucky. It's like, no, I'm going to be the one that makes it even better. Because that's the way these people think. When you're put under a significant amount of pressure as athletes, as coaches, as executives, you live and die by that. It's adrenaline to you.
Yep.
I think some people have the idea that, hey, look, I don't want to be that guy that follows Nick Saban. I want to be the guy that follows the guy that sucked after Nick Saban. You know what I mean? Let the dust clear. But because sustainability is another thing. Those great coaches are there for a reason, and the record that they produced, sometimes it's hard to keep that going.
615-737-1045. After last night's college football playoff semifinal, there is a stat about James Franklin that just keeps following him. Coach that used to coach right down the road. It is the biggest negative about a program that actually took a pretty big step this year. We'll talk more college football with you coming up next. Hey, what's going on? It is Will Bowling. Is your heating system keeping up with the colder weather? Well, available 24/7, 365. The professional Lee Company team is here to help. Their technicians will perform a 22-point inspection, as well as seasonal cleaning and maintenance to keep your home running efficiently this winter. Even better, save $30 on your next heating tune-up visit today. That's $30 off on your home's next heating service. You got to contact Lee Company at 615-567-1000 or online at leecompany.com for an appointment to keep your home's heating in check. And look, if it's not in check yet, you're going to find out over this weekend. There is no doubt about that. As you're snowed in, as you're staying around the house, you might be extra encouraged to take care of this. Lee Company, they're the folks you need to trust. They've got 80 years of experience. It's who I trust with their 14 community locations, 24/7 hours. They are ready to help you at a moment's notice. 615-567-1000 or online at leecompany.com. That's Lee Company, all you need.
It's Ramon Foster Hiller, plumbing, heating, cooling, and electrical. Y'all, Hiller has been around and in business since 1990, man, and they are family owned and operated. Hear me out right here. Jimmy Hiller was recently named the most admired CEO, one of the most admired CEO, because the way he truly cares for his team and his clients. It's that simple. Hiller also has a true transparency pricing. It's this, y'all. Look, they take care of you on every single job that they do every single time, and they stand by their work. Here's a guarantee to you. People want guarantees these days. Well, 100% satisfaction or happy you'll be or the service is free. It's that simple. If a customer isn't pleased with the work performed, they will make it right. You heard it. It will be free if you don't like it. A professional, experienced, trustworthy technician that will come out to your house and leave it cleaner and better than they found it. For more details or to get service at your home, visit happyhiller.com.
Friday morning on RKW continues 615-737-1045 and streaming live on 1045 The Zone TV.
Yeah, baby.
That's where you see our cold faces on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. Hop in the comment section and you will join the F&M Bank chat. Last night, 27-24 Notre Dame over Penn State. James Franklin is now 1-15 against AP top 5 opponents as the head coach of the Nittany Lions.
You know what? When he was here at West End, he did beat the Vols at least once, I think.
Oh, more than once, yeah.
But the point was, I don't think he ever really struck fear in the guys like Nick Saban, you know, the Kirby Smarts, the incumbents that had been here for years, even though he was able to put together a really good program with eggheads. You know, I say eggheads because you gotta have a certain kind of smarts to be in that curriculum over there, right? And to be able to do that is a monumental task, to say the least. And what he's done with Penn State's program shows that he is a really good coach. But for whatever reason, it's not like he doesn't get good players in there either. But for whatever reason, when it comes to head-to-head, like we saw last night, they had all the momentum in the first 30 minutes of that ball game. And you're thinking, this is going to be the hurdle that he finally overcomes. And next thing you know, those second half adjustments that Marcus Freeman were able to make and the convincing his guys that they could actually go out there and do it, get back into this ball game, even though it was only a touchdown difference, right? They just got caught up on. And it's unfortunate because I do believe wholeheartedly that James Franklin is one of the better coaches in college football. But that record, you just can't deny it. 1-15. Mm-hmm. That sounds crazy for a guy that is as successful as James Franklin is.
And I think that's how certain people look at it, that, aren't necessarily going by the wow factor of the numbers, because if you just do that, it's absolutely like mind blowing. It's almost like when you talk about Ryan Day at Ohio State and, losing these games continuously to one team in Michigan, right? So then their fan base, if you're really not looking at the overall picture, is thinking, oh no, he got to go. But if you think about James Franklin as a coach, I agree. I think he's one of the better coaches in the country right now with what he's done to a Penn State program that, let's just tell it how it is, was really buried after all the stuff happened with Joe Paterno that left. Then Bill O'Brien kind of used up Paterno's guys. And then once Paterno was gone, or Bill O'Brien was gone, it was up to James Franklin to build this thing back up. It's a difficult place, Happy Valley is, to recruit to. It's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's not easy to get some guys maybe, over these other places where you can just hop on a plane, go straight to it, whatever. So I think all in all, I don't know how much better they would get right now with any other coach, because I feel like he elevated this year them to another level. Now, they've got to get it done when it's all said and done, but I do think they're headed in the right direction. But that number, that record against top, what'd you say, 5 teams?
1-15 against AP top 5 teams.
That is hard to look at.
Okay, so let's be honest, though. How many coaches are really good against top 5 teams? Those are guys that we're talking about, Hall of Famers in the coaching sense.
Sure.
If you've got a 15-1 record against top 5 teams, you are an incredibly good coach. Okay, so it's not easy to win in that space. Now, 1-15, first off, that it is a glaring number, right? But it also shows that he's played top competition. Unfortunately, it hasn't always bounced his way, but there aren't many coaches that you can say they have just gone out there and just had their way with top 5 programs, because we'd be talking about them being the best.
The decision they made with right under a minute left to be aggressive and try to kick a field goal. Did you like that?
Well,
is that the right call?
I think that just them trying to get points on the board and kind of break the gridlock, it seems like the most conventional thing. I mean, if you're reading the room to say, hey, look, maybe we should just keep going for it and put this thing in the end zone and get some separation. I think that we will probably – I don't think that James Franklin worries about being second-guessed, but that's what we always do. I mean, we're doing it now.
Yeah.
We're doing it now. So I'm just looking at, I think that there are a couple of mistakes that they made late that obviously cost them ball games, but you got to also look at what Marcus Freeman and his boys were able to do. I mean, they rallied around Riley Leonard when he wasn't playing at his best, and they made plays when they needed to make plays. They ran the football way more effectively, 15 yards rushing in the first half versus 44 yards in that first drive to start the third quarter. They figured out what it was that they needed to do.
He's also got a quarterback that, I'm not going to always just blame it on one person, but, James Franklin can't control exactly that interception either. That was a quarterback decision and not a great one. And you can't completely, control that situation as well, which I think is a difference maker.
Well, and Drew Aller, to Greg McElroy's point, I know he jinxed him right before and said, well, he's probably not going to put the ball in harm's way, and 2 plays later threw a pick. He only has 10 picks in his career in, now his second year as the starter. He had 24 touchdowns, 8 interceptions this season, 25 touchdowns, only 2 picks all of last year. So that scouting report is correct that Drew Aller rarely throws late over the middle like that and puts the ball in harm's way. Here's my thing, though. You didn't complete a pass to a receiver all game.
Yeah.
What made you think that you were going to magically be able to all of a sudden just dink and dunk and slice your way through a really good Notre Dame secondary down the field? Like, take a couple of run plays, give it to Tyler Warren on a sweep, screen it to him, and just get to overtime. I thought James Franklin's management of that game is the reason today why we're talking about Notre Dame, because you put yourself in harm's way. And it's not even as much on the quarterback. You don't have receivers that can separate with that quarterback and that O-line against that defensive line against the Notre Dame defense. They didn't complete a pass to a receiver all game in a semifinal of the college football playoff.
And I think that was something that they took into consideration. When they had 14 unanswered points, they're thinking, hey, look, they've got all the momentum. We've got to get an explosive play to get us back in this ballgame, which is why you saw him throw over the middle late. They were trying to do something to create a spark, right?
Yeah.
and create some sort of momentum on their side when it seemed like this second half was entirely Notre Dame's, which it was.
It was.
Because that first half, Notre Dame was getting pushed around.
Absolutely. They were
especially in the first quarter.
Yeah.
I mean, the first drive that Penn State had, they went down there methodically.
Mm-hmm.
And well, first they got a field goal. Then they put up points to create a 10-point difference. Then it was a field goal that Notre Dame kicked that actually brought them within a touchdown. But it didn't seem like anything that Notre Dame was trying to do was working because they were getting pushed around.
Yeah, 42 carries for 204 yards for Penn State in this game. I mean, Nick Singleton is going to be a dude that gets paid a lot of money to play the running back position for a very long time. No doubt about it. Riley Leonard is so tough, though. Honestly, I mean, I know he threw 2 picks in this game. He was far from perfect, but that guy running 18 times for 35 yards, 15 to 23 for 223, a touchdown. He's got the it factor and the kind of intangibles you need to win a national championship. And he's not the flashiest player. He doesn't have the biggest arm. He's not the best athlete. I promise there's a positive part of this coming. Like he's just a guy that wins football games.
He's a football player.
He's just a high football IQ. It's almost like another Haynes King in that Georgia Tech team that almost upset Georgia.
When someone says he's just a football player, that is a huge compliment because to be that means that you're well-rounded. You don't necessarily have to be the best. You can be a jack of all trades, but it's somebody that, first off, it builds confidence with the guys that you're playing around, and they want to play for you. You know what I mean? They want to see you succeed because they like you. They see your potential. That's the reason why you saw so many kids encouraging him. Hey, we know you threw a couple picks, man. It's okay. You know, don't get down on yourself. We believe in you 100%.
Yeah.
And it's that confidence they had in him that allowed him to overcome those issues and still lead them to victory.
I don't know if you guys watched the pregame huddle speech. They were miking him up in that and, saying he's just so unique too in the way that he leads. Like people just automatically magnetize towards him because he's got that ability, right? Like you just said, he's a football player. And the way that he's kind of led his team in moments, he showcases that not only, verbally, but he does it just blank on the field. So.
Josh Pate from 247 Sports, CBS Sports, Josh Pate's college football show. I encourage you to subscribe. It's excellent. Put out the hypothetical spreads from FanDuel Sportsbook for now both the national championship game options. I'm curious what you guys think these numbers are. So if it is Notre Dame, Ohio State, what do you think that point spread is?
-3.5, Ohio State.
Brad?
1.5.
Bert, you want to get in on this?
I would probably say it would be 5.5 Ohio State.
So my guess last night, talking to a buddy, was 7.5 Ohio State. It's even higher than that.
Really?
What?
Ohio State -9.5.
I don't like that.
Well, I love it. I'd still take Ohio State. I mean, I said yesterday, I don't think Ohio State plays a single-digit game in the entire playoffs. As well as they're playing and as lacking as that Notre Dame offense is, give me Ohio State by 2 touchdowns over Notre Dame. I think they're
2
that much
touchdowns
better.
in a national
I just think
championship.
in a national championship game, and I get it, Will. I mean, their offense is not even close to what Ohio State's offense is, but defensively, could they cause some problems? That has not happened yet in the playoffs for Ohio State.
2013, Notre Dame got blown out in the national championship game.
Yeah, see, that's what Marcus Freeman wants you to think, though.
Real quick,
9.5.
Notre Dame, Texas. What do you think that spread would be?
I think it might.
That might be 1.5
For who?
for Notre Dame, in my opinion.
Okay.
I'd say 4.5.
For who?
-4.5 Ohio State.
No, Notre Dame, Texas.
Oh, sorry, Notre Dame, Texas. Oh, Texas -3.5 then, yeah.
Bert?
Yeah, it's about where I'd be. Probably 3.5, 4.
Texas -2.5. They'd be a 2.5 point favorite over Notre Dame. 615-737-1045 is our number. There is another GM opening in the NFL. How does it compare to the attractiveness of the job here? We'll talk about that next.
Is your concrete in need of repair? Maybe your sidewalk is shifting, your driveway is cracked and sinking, or your porch steps, have they moved? Shifting concrete can create a dangerous situation and trip hazard around your home. It's also just a big eyesore. It's Ramon Foston. Whatever's going on with your concrete, listen to me. Call United Structural Systems. Ask them about the polyurethane foam injections. That's right. You've heard about USS for a long time. It's the same company that's provided superior foundation repair and waterproofing to Middle Tennessee since 1994. They can also fix your sunken or settling concrete. USS uses polyurethane foam injection to lift and repair concrete in a matter of minutes. Lifted concrete can also be walked on immediately or even driven on after 30 minutes. So don't go through that long, expensive process of ripping out and replacing concrete. Reach out to the people that I know and trust. You can simply go to USSTN.com. That's USSTN.com or call them at 615-488-7855.
What's going on? Happy Friday. Good morning. It's 7:03 from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Notre Dame punching its ticket to the national championship yesterday, taking down Penn State 27-24. Riley Leonard was not stellar, but got the job done, finishing 15 of 23 for 223 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. They will play the winner of tonight's Ohio State and Texas matchup. Jonathan Jones reported yesterday that the NFL was looking into the Titans general manager position to see if it would be a lateral move for assistant general managers that would be applying for the position, and they found that it would not be a lateral move. The NFL reviewed the description of the Titans general manager position, and the two sides have agreed that the vacant position will be the primary football executive post. Non-GMs cannot be blocked by their current team from accepting interview requests. And it was announced yesterday that in the interest of public safety, Monday's Vikings-Rams wildcard game has been moved to from SoFi Stadium in California to Arizona. The decision was made in the consultation of public officials and the participating clubs and the NFLPA. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Friday morning as the snow falls in Middle Tennessee. Welcome in to a hot and fresh RKW. Brad Hopkins in for Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling. Robert Walsh is our producer. The phone number 615-737-1045 with a lineup that Vols fans are just absolutely going to love this morning here on the show. VolQuest's Brent Hubbs, you always know, to get him Fridays at 7:20 here at the show. That's coming up in 15 minutes. The VOT is the VOT V. Doesn't really have the same ring to it. Mike Keith will join us at 8:20. We're so excited for him, the next voice of the Vols. Of course, as announced just under 24 hours ago yesterday morning. And Ron Slay of 3HL and SEC Network at 9:20 this morning as well. With lots to get into, we got to make a very important programming decision this morning. We're still going to play the Sopranos theme for Mike Keith when he joins us at 8:20.
Ooh.
Because it always sounded like, the boss, the VOT. What's it to you? I'm walking you. Like, at 8:20. My Italian accent's terrible.
I was just about to say that.
It's okay. I know it.
Technically, he is still the voice of Tennessee.
TENN Voice is his social media handle.
That's why I said he can still be the VOT. It's just not the Titans. The T is Tennessee, not Titans.
Voice of the Tennessee.
Not two T's.
Lowercase balls.
Just one T. Voice of Tennessee.
Yeah, voice of Tennessee.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
I think that works.
This is why we leave the important programming decisions to Robert Walsh. Above my pay grade. What happens when Mike Keith joins the show?
Probably still going to bump him back with Sopranos, but maybe with a little different spin to it this week.
Okay.
Love it.
With a little Rocky Top feel to it.
Yeah.
Sopranos meets Rocky Top.
Spooky
I may have let
Rocky
the cat out of the bag. Maybe Bert had a plan that I was unaware of. But usually good things happen when Bert has a plan that I'm unaware of. So we'll let him cook. 615-737-1045 is our number this morning. The Raiders have a GM opening. A little bit of a surprise there. Tom Telesco fired just days after the Raiders fired Antonio Pierce. You talk about somebody that drafted well and then got his walking papers for doing it. Their first 3 picks this past season, all good players who all played. Brock Bowers, number 13 pick, set an NFL rookie single-season receiving record with 112 catches, was named to the Pro Bowl. If you're breaking Mike Ditka records, then that's a good player that you picked. Offensive lineman Jackson Powers Johnson started games at left guard and at center, the Oregon product. By all accounts, a very good rookie season for him. And then DJ Glaze started at right tackle, which had been the Raiders' top position in need going into that draft. How does the attractiveness of that position compare to the position here?
I think that you just named some really great young players, and especially being able to hit recently on those guys that are going to be able to contribute for a long time. But the one question mark they continue to have too is the quarterback spot. And they're in just as a similar position as the Titans are, except for they don't have the number 1 overall pick. Now, we'll see what they do if they decide if there's a trading partner that they can come up and get their quarterback, if they believe Shedeur or Cam Ward could be that. But I think it's a similar situation, guys, than what's going on here in Tennessee. Now, Tennessee might not have the recent skill players that they've been able to add, right? Because they've been trying to build this offensive line back up. But I do feel like they're both needing a quarterback, which is a big piece to the whole entire pie. I think it's just more preference at this point in terms of management, what type of management you want to work with. Because Davis, why am I know, I still want to call him Al. Mark Bullcut Davis is still has not necessarily had things together there too. They've gone through a lot of stuff in the past several years, just like the Titans have in terms of role switching and head coaches and GMs.
I don't think it's a surprise that these two similar situations are existing because the action is the same. They fired, someone in the front office. The difference is Brian Callahan's still here. Antonio Pierce is not. They fired 2 people.
That's a good point.
Okay, yeah. But the same problems exist. Here are 2 historic programs, even though the Titans have only been in Nashville for, a quarter century. The franchise previously existed in Houston. And we know the Oakland, L.A. Raiders have been around for a long time, almost as long. So they're historic programs that are experiencing the same issues, quarterback play and the consistency of it. The thing is, though, they've also even tried bigger names like Derek Carr, like Jimmy Garoppolo.
They have.
And for whatever reason, it hasn't worked. So there's the instability of them, moving from Oakland, building this whole situation and trying to develop a fan base in Sin City. Where they're already dealing with tourism dollars for people that don't even really watch football. People have been going to Las Vegas well before the Raiders got there, and they're going to continue to go there for other reasons. Nashville is now becoming a tourist destination. So there are a lot of similar qualities as to reason why people would even want these 2 jobs. As far as like the potential, the newness that's going on there in Las Vegas versus this brand new stadium. The first pick of the draft, ushering in a new group of talented players, you would hope. And, it's just really 6 of one, half dozen of another to me.
I am excited about this from the Titans' perspective because I think it means Tom Brady gets an even bigger seat at the table. Minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders. It is well documented how close Tom Brady and Shedeur Sanders are and how highly Tom Brady thinks of Shedeur Sanders. I hope that this means as he gets a louder voice that whoever that GM is wants to make a deal. Because moving back to 6, I think for the Tennessee Titans is a spectacular option. As long as you get their first-round pick next season, give me that all day long. All day long. I am excited about this opportunity, to be honest with you. I think that's where this affects the Titans the most.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Multiple reports say that Tom Brady will have a say in picking the team's next QB, and he would have to sign off on it and endorse it if they did move up. And I think there's an opportunity there. Tom Telesco was GM of the Chargers from 2013 to 2023. Diana Rossini writing that the organization wanted cohesion and wanted their GM and their head coach to be on the same timeline. That way you were not arranging a marriage between those 2.
Yeah. Have we seen any of the candidates yet for the Raiders coaching positions pop up?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they've been interviewing a bunch of people.
I've been so focused on the Titans situation. I hadn't even looked at some of the guys.
They just let the guy go. So it's like,
Well,
Sonny
yeah.
Pierce, yeah.
But gosh, they've got, think about this. You don't have a head coach or a GM, and you're headed to all these Senior Bowls and East-West Shrine games. That starts now. And you don't even have 2 guys that are supposed to be working together to go pick this draft class, go decide if you're trading up to get a quarterback. That, to me, is where it is kind of like, well, at least the Titans have the general manager and head coach there.
So they have requested to interview Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, Steve Spagnuolo, Todd Munkett, and Robert Saleh.
Now, the thing is, maybe that's an advantage for the Raiders, the fact that the general manager will be getting there at the same time as the new head coach, versus, the already existing situation with Brian Callahan, Chad Brinker obviously having some influence, and then you trying to figure out what you're pegging, where you are in the hierarchy of things, right? I mean, there's a lot more newness that needs to be established in Las Vegas than there is here.
Right.
Now, the one thing I'm thinking about also is stability, and you kind of alluded to this earlier, Kayla. Do you plan on being here for a while? Now, I know that that's kind of a loose situation to talk about because this is the National Football League, and people don't stick around for 5-6 years on average. People have a lot of turnover because of the results that would want people to be sticking around or they get fired. So is there more stability here in Nashville versus there being in Las Vegas? Does the guy that gets hired in either one of these positions plan on being around, planning on setting up roots here and being here for a number of years to at least see the draft picks that he picks, see themselves through a first contract, if anything? I mean, if you think about that, if I'm drafting a guy, I would hope to at least be around through his first contract, which is 4 years at least.
Right, and that's just not what we've seen in either franchises yet. So that is still yet to be determined. And you come in, in any job really in the NFL, but especially in some of these places like, Las Vegas and Nashville, in these franchises where they're quick to kind of push the button of panic and fire, you're coming in knowing there's a chance that you might not be here for a long time, despite what they're saying.
It's interesting. Maybe we get tipped off of what their inclination is at quarterback, depending on who they hire at head coach.
Yeah.
Like if they bring in Aaron Glenn to be their head coach,
that might not be it.
Maybe they're not going to get a quarterback. But again, like maybe the prerogative for Aaron Glenn is similar to what this organization told Mike Vrabel when he got the job here originally. Mm-hmm. Hey, and you're going to go get Matt LaFleur to be your offensive coordinator. So again, what that staff looks like and what Tom Brady wants to do, I think is something to monitor. And I just get the feeling that Tom Brady's involvement might push them in the Shedeur Sanders route. And goodness, I hope it does. I really hope it does. 615-737-1045 is our number. Coming up next, VolQuest's Brent Hubbs, his weekly visit with us. Tennessee in the transfer portal, continuing to host some big-time targets. And Tennessee landed a big recruit yesterday, Mike K. in Franklin. Mike Keith, if you're unfamiliar. We'll talk about that as well. VolQuest's Brent Hubbs joins us next. RKW 104.5 The Zone on a snowy Friday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Brad Hopkins, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling, joined by our very good friend, Brent Hubbs of VolQuest and On 3 from Knoxville with lots to discuss on Rocky Top. Brent, good morning. Happy Friday. How are you?
Happy Friday. Good morning, guys. Hope everybody's doing well. Stay safe out there.
Thank you. Absolutely. You as well. Brent, of course, we got to start with Mike K. and Franklin. The next voice of the Vols. It feels full circle. We talked about it the day we heard the news about Bob Kessling's retirement, but I know you guys just had an awesome conversation, a great interview at VolQuest with Mike about this step and this process. Brent, I know that's someone you know very, very well, is a good friend of yours, and just a perfect fit for Tennessee fans of the Vol Network.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for Tennessee fans. I'm excited for Mike. Obviously, everybody knows the relationship I've had with Bob Kessling for the last 26 years and what he's meant to me and what he'll always mean to me for the opportunities that he has given me, and I can never repay him for all those opportunities. You know, I met Mike 32 years ago, and I was a young communications major who was going to take a practicum and an internship and was on my way to do some TV production stuff, and along the way I fell in love with radio and reporting because of Mike. And I don't have a career of any kind without Mike Keith. And the years I spent working directly with him as my boss in the mid-'90s were the funnest, most challenging days of my career, challenging in a good way. He pushed me to get better. He made me uncomfortable. He taught me the business. He taught me how to create relationships with people, real relationships, and the significance of that. And as a result, I've been blessed with a career that I never dreamed possible and, quite frankly, don't deserve. And he's the biggest reason why. So I'm excited for him because having been around him as much as I have through the years, certainly working with him and our friendship afterwards, nobody loves Tennessee the way Mike loves Tennessee. And Tennessee's been, and Orange has been in his blood since he was born. And he grew up around it because his father absolutely loved Tennessee to the core. And if you read any quote, if you watch our interview that's on YouTube and on our site, you quickly understand how much he loves Tennessee.
No doubt about it. And you got to go do that at VolQuest.com. It is a great, great conversation. And Brent, it's cool, the opportunity that Mike had, and we'll talk with him in an hour here as well, but the opportunity he had to build the infrastructure from the ground up and the brand of Titans Radio. And in a lot of ways, Mike Keith is synonymous with football in the state of Tennessee in the two biggest ways, at the professional level and, of course, the Vols as well. And he's one of us, right? I mean, one of us fans and Titans fans and Vols fans. And I know you guys are so thrilled. And the tradition, Brent, of the Vol Network and the four folks that have come before him and John Ward and Bob and Lindsey Nelson all the way back, in the early days, the tradition of the Vol Network, Brent, is something that will continue in very good hands.
Well, no doubt, but that tradition will be met with innovation, and things will be different. It'll be done Mike's way. He will, quote, thread the needle, as Danny White likes to say, between tradition and innovation. And I think that, again, I've got a pretty good window. I've had a pretty good window seat to Mike's career, and Mike has built everywhere he's gone and done something. He built Sports Talk in Knoxville into a franchise that still exists today. And he took Titans Radio when a lot of people said you couldn't make it a statewide brand and a statewide network, that they were just going to be a Nashville thing. And he turned Titans Radio into a statewide network that was its own successful entity that a lot of NFL networks tried to look at as a model, and he created it from ground zero up because he believed he could do it. He knew how to do it, and he did it. I mean, Titans Radio is a thing, and it's a thing because not just because of what Mike did in calling games on Sunday, but what Mike did 365 days out of the year to make Titans Radio what it is. And I think you saw the respect that the Titans organization has for Mike with what Miss Amy put out yesterday in her statement, the fact he's going to be in the Ring of Honor.
Pretty amazing, no doubt about it. Brent Hubbs of VolQuest with us this morning on Ramon, Kalen, Will from the broadcast booth to the football field. Brent, a big commitment from Alabama receiver and Chattanooga product Amari Jefferson on Tuesday. What was this process like getting Amari in the mix, and how quickly, Brent, could he have an impact for Tennessee next season?
Well, he's coming off a hip injury where he had a minor hip procedure, but he says he's going to be cleared and ready to go for spring practice. That'll be huge if he can be a full-go participant in spring practice, because he's going to need that work to get adjusted to this offense, and he'll need that spring to put himself in the best situation he can to be a real factor early on for Tennessee next season. Amari's a guy Tennessee loved coming out of high school. Of course, he was originally committed to play baseball for Tony Vitello before football blew up, and he got all the football opportunities. But Tennessee wanted him very much coming out of high school. Those around Amari really were enamored with the thought of him going to Alabama and playing for Nick Saban. Amari almost took a late visit to Tennessee right before he signed with Alabama, and still had some Tennessee in his heart. Went to Alabama, and, of course, Nick Saban retires, and Amari was looking to come home. He wanted to be back at Tennessee. He wanted to be around friends. He wanted to be around the Tennessee program that he really liked coming out of high school anyway. And so it was a pretty simple process for him. It was, enter the portal, don't make it a big deal. Tennessee, are you interested? If you are, I'm coming. And that's essentially how that recruitment in the transfer portal went. It was not about a re-recruitment. It was real simple. I'm in the portal. I want to come home, and Tennessee said, come on, we'd love to have you.
Absolutely, Brent. And of the 9 players that actually are in the portal leaving the program, I'm probably most surprised about Squirrel White. I mean, especially for someone that has been so instrumental and pivotal in the Tennessee's offense. I guess Tennessee's loss is Florida State's gain, right?
Yeah, I mean, Squirrel's a productive player. He had a hard time staying healthy this year. But he's been a productive player at Tennessee. I think that he probably wanted quite a bit of value to stay, Brad, and probably put himself in a situation where may have overpriced himself a bit and decided he wanted to test the waters and see what was out there. I don't know what kind of financial agreement he's got with Florida State and how much he's getting or anything like that, but I think he put himself in a position that he decided he needed to look around based on where Tennessee thought his value was, and he thought his value was, and that's the month of December in college football now.
Yeah, Amari Jefferson is not only the last choice that they're going to have as far as reloading a receiving core. There are probably some other names that we're going to be hearing about either through the transfer portal or recruiting that will be adding and giving them some depth in Rocky Top this year. Am I right?
Yeah, I would think that, they would like to certainly add another receiver in this cycle if they can. Now, the question is there somebody they like right now? We'll see. I mean, they haven't brought anybody on campus for a visit, but I think they're certainly kicking the tires at guys who are in the portal or are going in the portal. There's still opportunity for some guys to go in here as college football season will conclude 10 days from now, I guess. And then you got the spring cycle as well. And what does that look like? So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think Tennessee's still going to be active. They've got the USC transfer. They've had him on campus the last 24 hours, and Emmanuel Pagan, excuse me. And he's I think that's Tennessee, Oregon. He's going to go to Texas next. We'll see where that one goes from there. So I think Tennessee would like to have an offensive guard if they could get one that they really wanted, and certainly receiver. And then we'll see what they do on defense. They've looked at defensive linemen. Would they bring one in? If the right defensive back came online as a transfer, would they kick tires there? I think they would certainly look at those spots, and then running back as well. They could potentially do something, whether it's now or in the spring cycle. So I think you're always looking. I don't think they're taking just to take a body. It's going to be the right fit, but they're certainly looking for potential right fits.
Brent Hubbs, our good friend of VolQuest, joining us as he does every Friday here on RKW. Brent, what's the latest with coaches in terms of who is looking to stay at this point and who might still be on the move?
Well, Tim Banks, strength coach Kurt Schmidt, special teams coordinator Mike Eckler, and secondary coach Willie Martinez are all on contracts that expire at the end of this month. And so it's either new contracts for them or moving on. And Tim Banks' name has been talked about with the Miami job. And as we talked about last week, he had no interest there. He was linked with the Clemson job early on. I don't think there's any real movement there with Banks or Clemson. So I think Tim Banks is going to be back when it's all said and done. And I think that he's had an opportunity from a contract standpoint to sign. I think they're trying to get through all of dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and we'll see if they get that one to the finish line. It feels like they will. Eckler's name has been linked to a special teams opening at Nebraska, and Mike is originally from Nebraska. That one makes total sense. But how interested is Matt Rule, Nebraska's head coach, in Mike Eckler? That's the uncertainty right now. And talking to some Nebraska folks the last few days, they are aware that Eckler would have interest in that job. They're just not sure exactly what direction Rule wants to go with that position at this point in time. Is he going to hire a full-time special teams coordinator? Is he going to hire a position coach and then kind of divide up special teams duties? That's what everybody's trying to figure out with that one. Willie Martinez, I think, will probably be back on another, for another year. He was on a one-year deal this past year. He's been on a one-year deal for the last couple of seasons. I don't think he's ready to retire. His defensive backs played well. It feels like he'll be back. And Kurt Schmidt, the strength coach, has been around Josh Heupel for a long, long time. I think there's a real comfort level there. If you're going to make a change at strength coach, to me, you would have already done it because your players are coming back to town in 11 days to start the winter off season. So I think you would have already had that situation rectified if you were going to make some kind of change there. So watching Eckler and Nebraska, that's the one that could potentially develop into something. At least that's what it feels like right now.
Hubs, do you feel like with assistants and coordinators nowadays in this, type of college football atmosphere, do you think they're more likely to kind of stick with what they're doing until a real true fit opening, happens? Because I do feel like, it's obviously a win. Tim Banks, if he does come back, does it change anything for them like it has for the players?
That's a great question. And I think there's a couple of ways to look at it. One, if you're talking about a coordinator seeking a head coaching job, you're not going to be a coordinator who takes the first job that comes along, because it's no longer about can I win in that conference. You have to look really deep at the resources. Can we compete in the NIL world that we're dealing with right now? Secondly, if I'm a coordinator and I'm making, $1.5, $2 million a year, do I really want to go be a head coach? Okay, how many head coaching jobs am I going to get to start my career? Let's look at Tim Banks. Let's say Tim Banks makes between 1.5 and 2 next year as a coordinator. Well, where's he going to go get a head coaching job that he makes more money than that? So are you smarter to stay and make that money and not have to deal with some of the CEO things that a head coach is having to deal with? Yeah, I think that's the case. On the flip side of that, if you're a university and an athletics director, do you feel like the easier way to fix your program is invest in the roster financially to get the head coach better players around him, and then make a move if you need to get his staff right? Because if you get rid of a head coach, and in a lot of cases you're looking at $25 to $50 million buyouts.
Sure.
On top of the fact that you're now putting $22 million into rev share as well. That's a new expense. So from a cost standpoint, is it better to, quote, fix the head coach's staff and roster as opposed to getting rid of the head coach and paying the big buyout money? I think that's a new dynamic that we're going to keep a close eye on in college football, in particular, with how much there is of head coaching movement versus a staff movement moving forward because of the amount of money that's being spent.
Great insight, as always, from VolQuest Brent Hubbs, who joins us here Friday mornings on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Brent, I'm really fascinated by Boo Carter's role in this Tennessee roster next season, and it feels like we kind of put that on the back burner, and it was Mike Matthews, and it was Amari Jefferson, and some of these other targets. But how real do you think Boo Carter's role in Tennessee's offense is as of today for next season, and how much of that still is remain to be seen and remain to kind of be written based on the way practice and the spring and the summer kind of goes for him?
Well, I think the focus became Mike Matthews and Amari Jefferson because of the amount of bodies they lost at the receiver position. I don't think anything has changed internally and what they can do with Boo Carter, what they would like to try to do with Boo Carter and the ball in his hands. Now, he's not going to play every snap like Travis Hunter did at Colorado. And I know a lot of people have tried to make that comparison. I don't see that being the case in terms of the volume of snaps. So then the question becomes, what all can Boo Carter handle mentally? What's the workload that he can handle? Can he continue growing in this defense to making the calls he has to make in the back end and all the adjustments you have to make and still learn offensively what to do? So I think the depth of what Boo Carter does offensively is largely due to where Boo Carter is in terms of his commitment to learn all of it. Are you going to be a guy who you run some jet sweeps to and maybe throw a wide receiver screen to every now and then? Are you going to be a guy who's got a real route tree and a real specialized package that has greater depth to it? I think that's unknown, Will, until we get through spring practice and until you really understand and know where all Carter's commitment is to learning all of that. Because he can't just say, hey, throw me the ball and let me go run around. That's not what this is going to be about. To be as big of a factor on offense as he wants to be, his commitment level off the field to learning the offense and as much of it as he can has to be significant, and that's what we'll find out in the coming months. Tennessee would love to use him a great deal on offense.
Brent, on the way out, I feel bad for Tennessee's basketball players and probably how rough their practices were after their trip to Gainesville earlier this week. What a way to get your first loss, Brent, and one of the worst shooting performances that the Vols have had under Rick Barnes. What have you heard about the response since that game? And I know Rick Barnes, Brent, might kind of be happy, not with the result, but the opportunity he has to kind of correct some things and get his team to lock back in a different way after that performance.
Well, I mean, listen, that team was never going to go undefeated,
right?
Okay, but now the question that you have to look at is, how do you respond to being uncompetitive, and why were you uncompetitive? I was really interested to hear Rick Barnes and see Rick Barnes when he met the media before they left town to go to Texas, and they got out early because of the weather. Say that when he watched the tape, it wasn't like it was a lack of effort, like guys were just not doing anything. It was some play that wasn't very smart in terms of not running the offense and not doing the things that you wanted to do and settling for jump shots. But he didn't think it was just a lack of effort. So now it's about how do you bounce back? How do you correct it? And how do you get tougher? Because Florida got in your grill. I mean, they just got up in your dish and out-muscled you and out-toughed you. And Barnes, I don't think liked it, but certainly sees it as something that he can use as a real defining moment for this team. We'll find out a lot about their leadership, how they respond, Saturday when they play against Texas. And, I think Barnes using it, to their benefit or to his benefit, if you will. I'll say this, no days are easy days on the practice floor with Rick Barnes. Right. If you win by 40 or you lose by 40, every day is a hard day of practice. That's the only way he knows how to coach. So I don't know that it was dramatically different on the floor, but they've certainly been challenged with their physicality, their manhood, whatever you want to say. They've been challenged to be a physical team because, as he's told his team, John Calipari talked about, well, if you're going to play Tennessee, you better strap it on because you're going to play a bunch of grown men. And his response to his team was, Florida didn't see grown men because you guys didn't play with the physicality you needed to play with. That'll be interesting to watch tomorrow.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest at On 3, our guest Friday mornings at 7:20 here on RKW. Again, I cannot endorse enough the interview Brent did with the VOT V, I guess we call him now, Mike Keith, who's going to join us in an hour as well. Excellent stuff at VolQuest.com. Always good to catch up with you, Brent. Thank you, sir. See you, B.
Thanks. Y'all be safe
thank you.
And have a great weekend. Thanks.
Yes, sir. You as well. There's Brent Hubbs here with us talking Vols this morning, brought to you by Ascend Federal Credit Union, your financial partner for every stage of life. UT versus Tex tomorrow night in men's basketball.
Yeah,
that's awesome, especially for Rick to go back to a place that he spent 17 seasons at. Maybe this wasn't special. A bad thing that happened. He got thumped by Florida to kind of be more refocused to go back down to the new digs.
His conference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So. I can tell you firsthand now, the only time Rick Barnes is not on edge at a Tennessee practice is when he's doing the pre-broadcast meeting with the play-by-play and color guy during shoot-around on the morning of the game. He's more laid back talking to us there, and I think that's about the only time that ever happens. 615-737-1045. Some major college football news came down yesterday. We've talked a lot about quarterbacks who should just get paid an NIL instead of being 4th or 5th round picks. Well, one of those quarterbacks in Georgia's Carson Beck took everyone's advice. What's next for the Georgia signal caller? We'll talk about that next. RKW 1045 The Zone, wrapping up the first half of your Friday morning. The new voice of the Vols, Mike Keith, will join us just about a half hour. Coming up at 8:20, Ron Slay of SEC Network and 3HL at 9:20, 615-737-1045 if you would like your voice to be heard as well. So I want to talk about Carson Beck, who entered the portal yesterday, but I got to give you all this quote. Riley Leonard was asked about what Marcus Freeman said at halftime to Notre Dame. Have you guys seen this?
No.
Yeah.
The quote was, "History is written by conquerors. We're holding the pen."
Oh, boy.
Dang. Go off,
got some
Marcus
great
Freeman.
stuff.
That's awesome.
He's got some great stuff.
Go ahead
Basically,
and motivate me for my Friday. All right.
he
Go
had
on.
some more in there talking about, you know what, if you believe you can, you can. If you believe you can't, you can't.
Right.
I mean, it's all about the will. It's all about your mind. I mean, if you think about it, Marcus Freeman has been a guy that has been able to keep his players' attention. You know, not only with these witty, sayings or whatever, but just by his determination to get the best out of his players. And I think that's one of the reasons why he's had such a meteoric rise with that program to this point. You know, it's not like Notre Dame, is a bunch of slouches and they don't get good players. But for whatever reason, there's been a disconnect for them competing at that level consistently, right? Well, he's put that to rest. Instilling in these players enough confidence in themselves, not only with these witty sayings, but just how he carries himself as a person. You know what I'm saying? So I really dig him in the impression that he's left already.
You better watch out. He's going to have some NFL teams eventually wanting him.
Oh, he absolutely will.
I think
Totally.
I'm impressed with his being just as persistent as he is. Like, he never gets too high, never gets too low. Like, all the interviews he does, like, in game, like, he is always the same Marcus Freeman. But like you were saying, has drilled in a certain message that these guys completely buy into, and has never let the outside noise, when they lose to a Northern Illinois early on in the season, get to what their end goal was or is still, because they're in it still. That's impressive, considering there's a lot of expectations and tradition at Notre Dame.
They should put beside the "Play Like a Champion Today" sign, they should at least put like a poster board that said, "History is written by conquerors. We're holding the pen."
There we
That's
go.
sick.
Yeah, but you've also got guys like Riley Leonard that absorb that.
Oh, yeah.
Him transferring in from Duke, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, the dude's playing in a national championship. He completely bought in. And when guys like that buy in, it's easier then for that sentiment to permeate throughout your roster and have a lot of other people have buy-in.
What's funny to me is that when you're winning, quotes like that are awesome. When you're bad, there's nothing worse than a bad coach who gives a cliche like that.
Oh, I wonder who
Butch
that
Jones,
might be.
Butch Jones
There
said
it
crap
is.
like that all the time at Tennessee.
There it is.
Yeah, but eventually,
You just didn't win.
You would hope that would it wouldn't be constant. You saying these witty things and it just falling on deaf
Well,
ears.
it did
You would
for
hope-
Butch.
I'm saying that's what you wouldn't want it to be that
it'd
way.
be awful.
Eventually, you would want the ebbs and flows of a
Sure.
season to kind of pass, and you get to those points where what you're saying makes sense. It's
Yeah.
relevant.
That is right. All right, so Carson Beck entered the transfer portal. This was the shocker of the cycle. Immediately becomes On3's number one player in the transfer portal. Miami has aggressively pursued quarterbacks behind the scenes since its bowl game. Multiple sources told CBS Sports, with starter Emory Williams, who is kind of penciled in to be the guy next season, struggling. When Cam Ward did not play the second half of the Pop-Tarts Bowl against Iowa State, Emory Williams was 5 of 14 for 26 yards and a pick in the second half against Iowa State. So Carson Beck now enters the portal with a do not contact tag, and his famous girlfriend, Hannah Cavender, is a women's basketball player at Miami as well.
Well, yeah, that'd be nice for him if that happened. Obviously, it could be in the same place. I first want to say this about Miami. They're heavily relying, and I know some programs are relying on this, but they seem to be having a pattern now of they are going to go and just get their transfer quarterback. And I think that is something you need to be a little bit careful about, because I know they hit the home run in Cam Ward. But if you got a guy like Emory Williams and you're not fully confident in, helping him develop, and you're just going to look then to the next guy to come in, I don't know if that's the way to do it in moving forward. And maybe that is the stamp that they'll put on themselves. I don't necessarily think Carson Beck is the perfect fit there.
Why not?
But I just feel like just the fit in terms of, like, Cam Ward just fit the grittiness, right? And I don't know if Carson Beck is really that guy that has as much upside as Cam did, because Cam could do all those things like turn over the ball, but then he made up for it with all the great plays that he made. That's just who Cam is. Carson this last year proved to get a little bit in his head when things didn't go right. And if you're relying on your offense to heavily carry your team like Miami has done, and they're going to have to improve their defense, I don't know if Carson Beck is right now that guy. I think he needs a lot around him to kind of help him blossom back again this year, because I think he took a step backwards.
Yeah, you were talking about Carson Beck at the beginning of the season. You weren't a fan.
No, and right now I think it's good he's coming back, but he's got to be in a place that he really can feel confident about himself. I don't know if that's Miami.
Yeah. I just think that he showed himself to be expendable. Gunnar Stockton comes in and does some things, and they're like, okay, well, maybe we don't need to have Carson Beck to be a successful team here in Georgia.
And they didn't help him at all there, right? The line was not as up to what it needed to be. The run game wasn't as, special as it usually is there, but he also didn't help himself.
Right.
It is interesting because Georgia is bringing in a lot of transfer portal wide receiver talent. They get the USC transfer, Zachariah Branch. They get Noah Thomas, the leading wide receiver for Texas A&M. They got both those guys to commit, and they need it, considering the amount of yards they lost on drops was the most in the SEC this season of any quarterback, Carson Beck. His receivers couldn't catch.
Right.
It was a big part of it. I know the decision-making, like he threw 12 picks this year, right? Like that's a career high for him. He wasn't good enough. But it's a fascinating case study. And can you then get it back? Mm-hmm. Can he replicate what he did in 2023 when they, were in the SEC championship game? He completed 72% of his passes, 24 touchdowns, 6 picks, 3,900 yards when his receivers could catch. I mean, his profile isn't that dissimilar from what Cam Ward was. I mean, a guy that, again, like you said, turns the ball over at times. Cam Ward did have 12 picks in 2023 before he transferred, but it is really, really interesting. I think this is a fascinating story to watch develop. Mm-hmm. Can he reinvent himself again? Because financially, he'll make more money at Miami, because ultimately, I think where he'll end up, than he would have if he'd been a third-round pick. So for context, and CBSSports.com had this number, Hendon Hooker, when he was picked, his initial contract was 4 years, $5.7 million. Like the Tulane quarterback, Darian Mensah, is going to get more than that this upcoming season. The rumors are he's going to make $4 million for his senior season. Well, he's getting $4 million. Carson Beck's number has got to be at least $5 million.
Yeah.
At least $5 or $6 million. That is significantly more than what he would have had as a third, fourth, fifth round pick going into the NFL.
Much like you talked about, Kayla, with what you're surrounded by, the offensive line playing, receivers catching balls, like we talk about even in the pros, quarterback surrounded by talented players that allow him to be better and maximize his opportunities, right? I think that's one of the things that we're talking about here with Carson Beck. Can he go find a place that has support for him, where he can find some sort of stability and then gain confidence, to get and play at the level that he's supposed to play at? So it's more than just him. It's where you land with the guys that are around you. It's the confidence that you can find, in that space. And, hopefully there is a sun rising for this young man, because I still think that he's a talented player.
I do. Yeah, I do too. There's a reason why he had certain stars around him and why he did well, before last season. I'm not actively rooting against him by any means. I'm going to tell it how it is. And I thought he was not good this year, and it is what it is. So you have a chance now to bounce back, but you really need to choose wisely in terms of where you're going, because that's your shot right there.
Mm-hmm. Vanny Man on YouTube says, is Beck worth that? He was okay. He was surrounded by talent.
No.
I think this year he was surrounded by a lack of talent.
Yeah, he didn't have right.
Well, I think his point is in 2023, he was surrounded by a lot of talent.
Oh, okay.
When he threw for that many yards. I think we're about to find out. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I don't know what Carson Beck is going to be at Miami. What I do know is Mario Cristobal has a really good roster and a really good thing going down there. And if they can play just a little bit of defense, he doesn't have to be what Cam Ward was this past season for Miami, again, to be knocking on the door of the college football playoff. Mario Cristobal has recruited so well in the high school ranks and transfer portal ranks. They're going to be good if Carson Beck throws the ball to his team and not the other one.
But you're right. They have to improve on defense, because Cam Ward held a lot of that team this year.
No doubt.
And because he was able to put the points on the board.
Coming up next, second half of the show, we'll hit the Titans headlines this morning, where another premier candidate has been requested to interview with the Tennessee Titans, a name that popped up 2 years ago, and a name that personally is at the top of my list of someone who I think would be as good as it could possibly get for the Tennessee Titans. Mike Keith coming up at 8:20. Ron Slay in hour 4. 615-737-1045. I'll hit more Titans headlines for you coming up next.
What's going on? Just about 8 o'clock. Good morning. Happy Friday from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Notre Dame punching their ticket to the national championship, taking down Penn State 27-24. Riley Leonard wasn't stellar, but he got the job done. 15-23 for 223 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. They will play the winner of tonight's Ohio State and Texas matchup. The NFL has reviewed the description of the Titans general manager position, and the two sides have agreed that the vacant position will be the primary football executive post. GMs cannot be blocked from their current teams from accepting interview requests, so reports Sports' Jonathan Jones. And it was reported yesterday that in the interest of public safety, Monday's Vikings and Rams wildcard game has been moved from SoFi Stadium to Arizona, to the home of the Arizona Cardinals. The decision was made under the consultation of public officials, the participating clubs, and the NFLPA. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
The snow is falling and the show rolls on through the second half for 2 more hours, kicking off your Friday morning here on RKW. 615-737-1045. If you are listening to us in your cars, let's keep it between the navigational beacons. Let's get both hands on the wheel and let's maybe pay a little bit less attention to us than what you normally would. Maybe you're tougher than me. I don't know how to drive in this stuff because I was born here. Brad Hopkins, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling, Robert Walsh is our producer. We'll be joined by the new voice of the Vols starting fall 2025, Mike Keith. Going to stop by coming up in 20 minutes. Ron Slay in hour number 4 at 9:20. And your comments to the F&M Bank chat, the comment section on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. Snow's coming down. Feels like we're in a snow globe here in our downtown studios.
Yes, interested on the drive home. I like snow. I can drive in snow, but if it's not plowed at all and you don't know exactly, where there are heavy spots, I'll be taking my time.
Absolutely. My brother works at a company that does winter tires and all weather tires. And he always tells me, he's like, no matter where you grew up, it doesn't mean you can just magically drive on ice.
That's exactly right. You got to learn how to pump the brakes.
There is a point to where there's really nothing you can do unless you have the perfect kind of tires. So nobody be a hero today, please.
No.
Do not be a hero.
If you're well versed on a 4-wheeler or a sled, though, you can be all right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just know how to take
tires,
the slide.
Yes.
No, I'm talking about even when you do lose control a little bit. Lose control meaning your car's not doing what you want it to do.
Right.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Let's not get to that point.
When you start fishtailing on the end there, you got to know how to slide, turn into the slide, that kind of stuff. Don't put on the brakes.
It's all about pumping them correctly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right. Yesterday, Jonathan Jones of CBS with some interesting reports on the Titans general manager position. First and foremost, Bears executive Ian Cunningham has been requested to interview with the Titans for the open position here. And Jonathan Jones gives interesting insight into what this position actually is and if teams are going to be able to block their executives from talking with the organization. Jonathan Jones writing yesterday, sources say the NFL has reviewed the description of the Titans GM position, and the two sides have agreed that the vacant position will be the primary football executive post. Non-GMs cannot be blocked by their current teams from accepting interview requests. That is good news if you are a Tennessee Titans fan. It means that the likes of Ian Cunningham will not be in lateral move territory. It would be a step up in terms of the NFL and their rules, and if teams can block interviews for them to talk here, it means you got a better pool of candidates to pick from.
Yeah, that totally makes sense because, if you think about it, for a team to block someone that's on their staff from being able to have conversations with someone that would be interested in hiring them, one, it says a lot about maybe even the relationship that he has with the existing franchise. Why am I wanting to block this guy? Because he's so valuable, or because I don't want to see him go to this certain team and end up making them better than what he's doing here. So, it's just kind of interesting to see how that relationship's going to play out, and what kind of sense does it make for a guy now that the hierarchy will be more established as to what your role will be. When you do come here having conversations with Brian Callahan, with Chad Rinker, with Amy Adams Strong as to what you're going to be, and facing a lot of the tough questions in putting together this team that you would hope to be competitive sooner than later.
Yeah, I think it's the big question now is this the structure that sticks? because the structure has been changed for the past several years, or few years, I should say. And last year, we thought that was the structure that was going to be finding success in the future. That clearly was not the case. And so now you're doing this again in terms of making roles a certain way. And we do know that Chad Brinker has, final say in all of the roster. So how much, does the GM really have to check everything? Do they feel like when they come in to take this job and they're offered this job, they can do their job to the fullest, and do it the way that they would like to do it too, knowing that you are going to have a check above you. So I think the finding everybody working together when they hire this person, I mean, they've all got to be on the exact same page, because you can't continue to mess with the structure, else you're never going to find continuity anywhere else down the road.
Maybe that's what helps, because it won't all just fall on this new GM, the responsibility of putting this thing together. If you see someone that's over you, then obviously his influence is going to be a huge factor in what actually gets done around here, right? So in other words, it's not just going to fall solely on the GM. The new guy coming in is to the reason why things are the way they are. I had a boss to answer to, and we all collectively came to the decision to bring in said player or do said things in this organization. So it's not just him, and he'll have that kind of, at least, grace, if you will, to help put this thing together, and knowing that it's not just him that's responsible for the way things are.
So Ian Cunningham, the ex-director of player personnel for the Chicago Bears, has been requested to interview with the Tennessee Titans, as we mentioned. Someone who interviewed for the general manager position 2 years ago as well. I read a piece in The Athletic about him from August, and this is a guy who in middle school knew he wanted to be an NFL general manager, which I think is awesome. It's so interesting how people earn front office opportunities in the NFL. You get a lot of guys that just want to be players and then learn, maybe I'm athletically challenged enough, I'll go be a front office exec. Or coaches, right? Similar positions, or, you come through it from a business perspective. But Ian Cunningham told The Athletic in August that he wanted to work for this for his entire life and career. Says, I'm on the cusp of that, something that has been a lifelong dream. Someone who played University of Virginia product, told The Athletic, I had the foundation of evaluation with Ozzie Newsome and the Ravens. With the Eagles, got to mix in the data and analytics to see how that meshes and what I can make in that pot of creativity. A guy who is a Southeastern Conference scout for Baltimore, was in analytics with Philly with Howie Roseman, and then now has been alongside Ryan Poles in Chicago. I'm curious, guys, is the timing right here for the Titans? Because if I'm tied to that front office in Chicago, I might want to put my name somewhere else at this point. Am I off base in thinking that? Because someone who's the number 2 for a GM that might not have too stable a footing, if I'm Ian Cunningham, this might be the perfect opportunity for me to take a step up and also avoid a kind of volatile situation that Chicago has right now.
Yeah, I mean, and look, Chicago has not been able to get things right either. You're right. I mean, they're looking for a new head coach now to try to direct their number 1 overall pick in the right direction so they don't waste that, because we all know that, number 1 overall picks, if they don't hit, like that's a big, red mark on your franchise. And so that could be a thing, Will, but you also are also betting that you're coming here and that things are going to go in the right direction. And there's not a ton of proof in the last few years that that's happened either. How stable is, your general manager job here if things don't magically go in the right direction next season? But you have the opportunity to kind of create your own narrative and get a fresh start. And if everything's according to plan, this is something where he could really put his name and stamp on helping the Titans get back to where they want to be.
So Albert Breer has just put out in the last 10 minutes a couple of nuggets about the Titans GM search. First of all, we have a schedule of who is interviewing when.
Oh, perfect.
Including 3 interviews today. So Albert Breer writes, Titans first round of GM interviews set for this weekend. Today, Reggie McKenzie, who is with Miami, former Raiders general manager, Vol for Life, Austin East Roadrunner. Go Roadrunners. Great place to watch a high school football game. He will interview today. Thomas Dimitroff, the former Falcons general manager, will interview today. And John Spytek, who is in Tampa Bay as an assistant general manager there. He will wrap up today's interviews. Tomorrow, Ed Dodds from Indy, Matt Berry from Seattle, Terrence Gray in Buffalo, and Catherine Hickman of the Cleveland Browns. Sunday, Mike Bergonzi and Ian Cunningham. So that is the schedule. Albert Breer then writes in a separate tweet, interviews will be held virtually and the organizational structure set up last year stays the same. Coach Brian Callahan will report to the general manager who will run the draft and free agency and oversees scouting, medical, strength and conditioning, etc. So there you go. There's Albert Breer.
Okay.
Same organizational structure as last year, he says.
Okay.
So nothing changed.
Yeah, I guess nothing changed, but yeah, let me think on that for a second.
Yeah. So I mean, it's interesting. But
I'm a little confused because I thought that there was some change in the structure and how that was happening with Chad Brinker, being the one that has still final say, I guess.
I'm curious if the NFL rules conversation with the league changed some of this structure within the last 24 hours. We don't have an answer on that yet.
Yeah.
It's an answer we'll get and try to effort. But
okay.
Albert Breer saying, Brian Callahan will report to the GM who will run the draft and free agency, oversee scouting, medical, strength and conditioning, etc. So for all intents and purposes, this is a general manager position. This is a legit GM job the Titans are hiring, which they've also said from the start of this process.
But we're assuming still from Chad Brinker's notes to Jim that he has final say, right?
Again, I don't know if that's changed in the last 24 hours, but I would assume that is still the case. Yeah.
All right.
So I hope you're all writing this in pencil and not pen.
Yeah.
Best way to describe
have
it.
An eraser on that one.
At the very least, at least we have a schedule of interviews, and again, all virtual, especially with weather things as what they are. It probably works out pretty well at this point. Coming up next, the new voice of the Vols, Mike Keith, going to join us after this on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Hey, it's Football. I want to tell you about my friends at Nolensville Auto Mart. Hey, you got through the holiday season. If you are still looking for that new vehicle for a brand new car to your family, you can still give that gift to yourself, maybe to someone in your family. And with 62 years in the business. Nolensville Road Auto Mart. These are the folks that I trust. They report to the credit bureau, so use your tax check and a down payment, and it's investment in yourself. They are family-owned and operated, and here's the best part. They are the bank. They can finance you even if you've got bad credit. It is the oldest and longest-standing buy here, pay here place in Nashville, if not one of the oldest dealerships in general. All clean titles on cars, not wrecked or rebuilt. All prices under $12,000 for fast payoff, and most terms are under 30 months. And when you go in and talk to these folks, you're going to be in and out within an hour. These are Nashville natives, locally owned, 2721 Nolensville Pike in Nashville. That is where you go to check these guys out. All prices under $12,000 for fast payoff and most terms under 30 months. Warranties included with every car. They'll show you a history report of where they purchased your car as well. Again, that's Nolensville Auto Mart. Check them out, 2721 Nolensville Pike in Nashville. Oh, what a moment that was in Houston. Sam Sloman winning the division for the Tennessee Titans against the Texans. One of the iconic moments. We could go on for hours of the iconic calls from the voice of the Titans, Mike Keith on Titans Radio. Brad Hopkins, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling, Ramon Foster with us as well, as we are pleased to be joined by the next voice of the Vols, Mike Keith. Mike, congratulations, first and foremost. What an amazing announcement and just so exciting. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. How are things 24 hours after the announcement went public?
It's been really nice. People have been very kind. and I'm just sort of overwhelmed to know where to start to say thank you. The only thing I know is just to express my appreciation that people have chosen to be kind about what our group was able to do over the last 27 years in Nashville, and what the excitement is ahead for what we're going to try to put together in Knoxville. And again, I don't have the proper words, which is kind of ironic because I talk for a living, but I don't have the proper words to express the gratitude that I have on behalf of myself and my family for all the kindness that we've experienced over the last almost 24 hours for sure.
Mike, man, it's Ramon here. I appreciate you, bringing me under your wing on this Titans radio conquest we went on, man. And to be the voice of the Vols right now, what kind of dream was it for you to be in this position, to actually have it presented to you after Bob said he was stepping down, that it became real to you, that it was a real possibility?
Well, I had sort of put it away in my mind many years ago that this would just not happen, and that was great, and that was okay, and I loved what I was doing, and we were totally happy with where we were, and you think of your family in moments like this, because there would have been moments where if I had gotten this call, I just would have had to say no thank you because my kids were in high school, or my wife had a job that she really enjoyed, or I was at a point in a contract that I couldn't leave. There are always life things that come up, and it just seemed like that was not going to happen. And I was totally thankful for what I had and where I was, and I had absolutely no problems with it. I loved working for the Tennessee Titans, and I hope people think that I poured my heart into it with all I had every single day. And then 2 years ago, I kind of had a bit of an awakening when I went through some stuff with my dad. I told the story to Brent on VolQuest that in watching the Tennessee-Alabama game in 2022, while my dad was in the hospital, I was really filled with a lot of different things that I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Just seeing the stadium from afar and just remembering all my experiences and seeing the students and a great football game. And my brother Bo took my nephew Will to the game, like my dad would take me and my brother Bo to the games. And so there are all these things that happened. And when I left the hospital that day, I just remember thinking, if they ever do call, I think I would be really interested in listening, because this is, all the experiences that I had growing up came flooding back at a moment in life. And honestly, I took it as a God thing, just to share with the audience. I did. And so they called, and they made it very clear what they were looking to do. The thing about the University of Tennessee right now, and it's the university as a whole, including the athletic department, is they want to be great in everything. They want to win in everything. And from the students to everybody else involved. And that's what's really special about what's happening at Tennessee in 2025. And they knew what their plan was. And I was thrilled to hear what they thought, because Alicia Longworth was my contact on all this, along with Steve Early from the Vol Network. And they said, this is what we want to do, and we think you can be a part of it. They said, we'd like for you to be a part of the team. And so as Michelle and I waited, and it just happened to be at a moment in our life where things opened up from a business standpoint, from a personal standpoint. We thought a new adventure would be exciting. And I thought, when we really went through all of this is something I want to do. I've described it to friends as, some people want to hike the Appalachian Trail, and some people want to jump out of an airplane and, see the Seven Wonders of the World or the Eight Wonders of whatever it is. Wasn't Andre the Giant the eighth wonder of the world? Anyway, but you know what I mean. For me, I have some of those things that I want to do, but at the same time, as I listened to this and as we talked and as it became apparent that it could make sense from every standpoint, I just thought, I want to do this. I want to go try this. I want to experience this. I want to be a part of this. And it came from, the kid who grew up loving it so much, but it also came from the fact that they provided a very clear roadmap to how they see it and how they believe we can execute this thing. And it's exciting. It's an exciting challenge that will be there in a lot of different ways. The Vol Network isn't broken, don't get me wrong. It's not about that. It's just things, of course, in 2025 go in different directions from a media standpoint and from everything you're doing and how they see things going forward with the SEC network and things that I've always been very interested in from a business standpoint that I've read a lot about and been involved in some of those conversations at times with the Titans. But that part of it has always fascinated me, and I think we're going to be able to do some really fun things. And just to end this 8-hour long answer, I'm excited to work with the students. I was a student who grew up in that program. Will knows what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. They've always had a place where students have had the ability to grow, get real world experience, and be out there. And Vols help Vols. I mean, Vols help Vols all over. When you go to Tennessee, there are always people out there who are willing to help you all over the world, no matter what you do. But in broadcasting, I think we have a unique ability to continue to draw the top talent. And, if you're considering going to Tennessee for this today, come on, because we've got a plan.
Awesome stuff. Voice of the Titans, voice of the Vols, Mike Keith, our guest here this morning. Ramon, you got one more?
No. I will be long-winded. You guys go ahead. I'll talk to Mike on the side.
So
this is big.
All right. I'm coming from a different space, Mike. I'm actually ticked off at you.
Okay.
When I left the organization in 2005, there were a lot of familiar faces that were in the building. And I remember being sad when Jeff was let go because he was the only head coach other than Jack Party that I knew for my 13 seasons here as the Titans. Us coming to Nashville started in Knoxville. We were playing a preseason game against the Washington Redskins. Yes, the Redskins, as offensive as that might sound. Exactly. When they broke the news to us to start looking for real estate in Nashville. You were there from the very beginning. We crossed paths every day for 8 years. And you were the only voice that ever was speaking about the Titans nationally as the games developed that I ever knew, that anyone ever knew as Titans. So I'm mad that you're leaving. I'm obviously very well wishing of your success because I know what a consummate professional you are, and I know that you're going to do an excellent job, and what an incredible replacement you'll be. And the Vols are getting the best. But I'm going to miss you, and I'm mad at you.
Thank you, I think. This is the first day since I was 30 years old that I haven't worked for that organization. It is really strange. I told Jim Wyatt yesterday, I have had... It's really been the strangest set of emotions I've ever had in my entire life because there is a profound sense of excitement and there's a profound sense of sadness. Because I was all in from the first minute I got there. From May 26, 1998, I was excited to be back in my hometown. I was honored to be part of an NFL franchise. I wanted to see us do well. I wanted to see this get established in a way that people would feel it as part of their lives. And so even as we've been through some of these difficult circumstances, and as I was listening on the radio the other day to people being, upset about various things with Rand being fired and what all was going on, I would always have to tell myself in those moments, dude, there was a time nobody cared. When we first got here, it'd be like the Titans or the Oilers did this, and people would be like, what? Who? And now people care to the point that it's deep in their passion in that way. And I've always been thankful that it has taken hold in that way, and that I got to be one of those people on the ground floor who helped spread that message. Wasn't just me, and I wasn't the biggest one and whatever, but I'm forever proud that I was standing in the parking lot with Mr. Adams on November 14th, 98, when he announced the name, and when we did the logo reveal on December 22nd, 1998, and when we unveiled the jerseys on April the 4th, 1999, and, opened the stadium and all of those sorts of things. And then to the moments of today that have been exciting over the last few years. I mean, I'll be forever thankful for that. I was asked by a friend on another interview, was this an easy decision? Absolutely not. It was not an easy decision. It's been gut-wrenching. But there are moments in your life you just say, I got to let somebody else take the wheel and let the big man guide me. And, then there are obviously business considerations that go into it, things that are outside of, outside of what you want them to be necessarily. They're just going to go how they're going to go. And you make a decision about which path you choose to take. And at this moment, I think the path was pretty clear. And I'm very excited about what's going to happen. But I'm not ever going to lose this place in my heart. Because, and I know that a lot of times, Brad, it's corny to people that you're as into it as what you are, like I am. I mean, I used to get teased a lot when I was a kid because I was so excited about Tennessee. People made so much fun of me growing up because I was so into the Vols, and I lived and died with the Vols. And I've been the same way with this team. I mean, last Sunday, I threw it all out there last Sunday. We gave everything we had on the last Brian Callahan show, and with everything we did, I'm really proud of the group of people that I work with, Jack Mummert, Max Walsh, Paige Porter, and obviously Amy Wells and Ashley Farrell, that, we poured everything we had into the TV shows and everything, even during a lousy season. But that level of commitment never waned. And I hope for the people who are disappointed in me, and I understand, I hope they understand and do believe, even if they're disappointed, that I gave them everything I had every single day. That's all I can lean on right now at this moment for those people who I love dearly. It's also why the announcement was not on Wednesday, because I was not messing up or overshadowing, at least, the 25th anniversary of the Music City Miracle. No way, no chance that was happening, because that's their moment. That's your moment, Brad. And that belongs to the fans, and everybody had a chance to have a lot of fun watching some great stuff that day.
Got to be honest, Mike, I didn't think it was going to be this hard to talk to you, so I got to end it on a lighter note. I'm excited to hear you talk about the hardwood, bro. I'm excited to hear you talk about Chaz Lanier and Ziegler and Meshack and all these cats that, that we watch, on the Vols basketball network. And, I know you're multidimensional, but all I've ever heard you talk about was the gridiron. So I got to be honest, man, I'm excited to hear you turn the page and do, show all of your talents.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to do basketball. And that was one of the parts of this professionally that was really interesting, is that I was, I said, is basketball part of the proposition? They're like, yes. And I said, great, because I'm a huge basketball fan. I'm a crazy basketball fan. My real interest early on in Tennessee was about basketball, because the basketball at that time was actually much better than the football. And going to Stokely Athletic Center, my family lucked into tickets on the second row, right behind where the team ran out of the tee. And there was a giant tee that there was, that they would put paper on. They would do spotlights, and the guys would run through the giant tee when they were introduced. And that was a source of excitement. It always has been. When I talked to Rick Barnes on this radio station last year, when I was telling Bob Kessling he was being put into the Radio Hall of Fame, I said, please get the guy from Nashville. And I was talking about Chaz Lanier. I don't think he liked that very much, but I really wanted Chaz Lanier, and I'm glad he got that done. So I'm going to have to spend a lot of time getting my basketball up to speed. It is something that I've done before. I was Kessling's backup for multiple years doing Lady Balls. I've done basketball on television. It's a game that I've worked and that I love very much, but there are nuances that I've got to master, and that's why I'm starting the job on Monday, because I'm going to bunker in on working on basketball and asking a lot of questions.
Voice of the Tennessee Volunteers, Mike Keith, joining us this morning on RKW. First and foremost, big congratulations, Mike. This is so awesome, and excited to listen to you in the college ranks now. What do you think will be the biggest difference, going from calling games and working with NFL athletes to now the college game and one of the best teams and programs in the country?
That's funny, because Kayla, they get paid now too.
Yeah.
So I think coming in at a time like this, the judgment of college athletes is going to be different as we continue to evolve, because they're paid to play football now. And that's vastly different. It's like my whole world has been turned upside down in the last 5 years, because, first of all, gambling became legal. And we were always told, every contract I had with the Titans, like the first 6 pages were, you will not bet on football. You will not talk about betting on football. You will not talk about odds on betting on football. You will not talk to people who bet on football, or talk about betting on football, or talk to people who bet on football. And now, I was broadcasting TV shows out of the Bet MGM studio for the Titans. So that was a real wow. The world turned. And then the other part of it is now, for you, when I covered it, it's like, oh gosh, these are student athletes, and they are, and now they're paid to play ball. They're paid to play football and baseball and basketball and volleyball, and it happens all over sports. And so it's quite different. So I'm going to be interested to see what that's like. I'm interested to spend a lot of time with Josh Heupel and, figure out differences in the game as you kind of watch all of that. I've never been the guy who tells you about cover 0 or, 3-by-1. I played football. I do know what those things are, but that's not been my bailiwick. I've not been interested. I've had people who were better at that than I am. And so I've tried to stay in a lane and give that other person a lane. And are those lanes different in doing a college broadcast? And I'm interested to find out. That's part of between basketball and the difference in the college game. The uniqueness of the challenge is appealing, because Kayla, it's scary. I knew the product that I was going to deal with every week. And while there were things that you wanted to do differently and you respected the task, you understood what the task was because you had been around the game for a long time and you knew how to prepare for it. I mean, I'm going to have to learn a whole new thing. And that's scary. I think scary is good. I think you've got to be scared some in your life, and especially in broadcasting. So I'm very interested in that.
Mike, when you think about your time with the Tennessee Titans and Oilers, you know, when it's all said and done, what would you be most proud of?
I'm most proud that I got to work with people who took something that was really doubted when we started, really doubted, and that it's such a major force in this entire region, that it's important to not only people in Nashville and Middle Tennessee, but it's important to people in Memphis and all over Western Kentucky and all over Northern Alabama and Chattanooga and Knoxville and all the way to the Tri-Cities. We work to make the NFL a part of people's sports weekends. That was the overriding goal, to give them NFL experiences in what they did. Now, Brad Hopkins sitting there is the biggest reason that it worked, because he and Steve McNair and Eddie George and Samari Rolle and Javon Curse and on and on and on, they gave us a great football team that gave us the greatest 22 days in sports history to this point. It'll happen again. But if you experience January 8th, 2000 through January 30th, 2000, there was nothing like that. It was so magical. So we had a ton of help, but there were a lot of people who were committed just at its base level. No matter how silly it sounds, it's like we needed to make Sundays as important as Friday nights and Saturdays. That was the goal. And I think we did that. And we did that on our end through great radio stations who chose to carry and promote the games. We did it through TV programming, doing it through podcasts now. But we went to the fans where they were, and we said, would you please be a fan of the Tennessee Titans? Wasn't social media, nothing wrong with social media, I'm for it, but it was about going out and just saying, hey, much like a candidate would say, would you vote for me, please? We went out and said, hey, give us a chance. And people gave us that chance. And Brad Hopkins and company came through for us in a big way, and now it's a part of people's lives. And as somebody who grew up in Franklin, Tennessee, to see people like pumping gas last night, I look around and 5 different people have on Titans gear. That makes me very proud. It makes me very proud that I was a part of that group of men and women who were involved on the ground floor of that, and who really believed it could work. Because I'll tell you, Kayla, when I took this job in spring of '98, people thought I was foolish, especially when John Ward quit 8 days after I took the job. They thought, man, you have really screwed up. And I never believed that. I believed I was meant to be here, to be part of something. And I was very proud to represent the Adams family in that way. It meant everything to me. And it still does, even though the times are dark at this moment. I get it. They won't always be. The Titans will come out of this, and the fan base will be rewarded with something much greater, as they go forward by hanging in there, much like the Vol fans had to do. You know, the Tennessee fans went through darkness, and now people are being rewarded with a lot of fun. And following the Titans is fun. Following a pro team is fun. Following this off season is going to be fun. The number 1 pick. it comes around, and it's certainly going to come around again for those people who are so loyal. So to the great Titans fans, I just say one more time, thank you very much.
Well, Mike, I know I speak for so many Titans fans to say you have been synonymous with football in this state. And the soundtrack of so many iconic moments. And, for myself as a lifelong fan, and I know my generation of fans, Mike, that have grown up only knowing Nashville as a pro sports city. You've been the sounds of so many formative moments and so many families' football memories. And I know that's something you cherish and is so special. And the team of people that you all have had, you only get to build something from the ground up so many times in your career. And the brand of what Titans radio is that echoes across the Mid-South, Mike. I know you are so proud, and so many people are so proud of the brand of you all have created, not only for this team, but for Titans radio specifically. So I have no question other to say thank you. And you played a major part in making Tennessee Titans football cool for so many different people, so many different families and generations. We can't thank you enough, Mike.
Oh, you're very kind to say that. I'm very appreciative that you would put it in that way, because that was the ultimate goal when we started, and it was the goal even as late as Monday when we were wrapping up the season. And how you put it was quite eloquent and most appreciated. Thank you.
Mike, there's only one thing I can say about your move to Knoxville. There are no flags on the field.
Well, there's only one thing I can say about that. Go Vols.
I love it.
Awesome,
absolutely
Mike.
Awesome. Mike, we are so excited for you. We are so excited to listen. The VOT V, voice of the Vols, Mike Keith, joining us this morning.
Hey, Mike, I got one more. I got one more before we go.
Okay.
All right. So, of course, with you being as big as you are as a personality, you've been the voice of the Titans for a while, and that place is voided right now. There'll be a lot of candidates, I'm sure. I'm not sure if you'll have any say-so in it whatsoever, but for somebody that's taking on that job, it's one of 32. We always say that when it comes to jobs in the NFL. It's one of 32. So it's very important. What advice would you give the next person that's got to fill in for your landmark that you put there? Like, I saw somebody in chat say it needs to be the Mike Keith broadcasting booth. Like, those are big shoes, Mike. What solid advice would you give to the people who are calling the Tennessee Titans that want that advice, that wants that job, I mean?
You're going to have to bond with the fans immediately. You're going to have to go where they are, and you're going to have to spend time with them and just understand what's important to them. I think the biggest thing Titans Radio did right is I think we've always given the fan base what they're interested in. And that is from draft coverage to preseason to how Titans Countdown is done, which was a totally different pregame show at the time we started doing it. We've changed things constantly over the years, but it was always about going to the fans and giving them what they want. Whomever gets that job, it's a great job, and if they will just meet the fans where they are in everything they do, they will be totally successful, because that fan base will embrace and support you and give you confidence even when you don't have confidence in yourself.
Good advice.
Mike Keith, we're honored to have this conversation with you this morning, Mike. We appreciate the time so much, and we are so excited for you. Really appreciate it, and go Vols as well.
Go Vols.
Go Vols for sure. See you guys.
There
Mike.
he is, the voice of the Vols, Mike Keith, joining us here this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. And thank you, Ramon, coming off vacation to talk to the VOT. Talk to the VOT team.
Pretty cool.
Thank you, Ramon. Appreciate you. We will get a break. We'll get you some headlines. We'll get you started close here. Final hour coming up. RKW wrapping up hour number 3 this morning on 104.5 The Zone. Again, we said it at the end of the last conversation. It's an honor to get to talk to the new voice of the Vols, Mike Keith, here this morning on the show. Appreciate Ramon Foster coming out of vacation for a couple minutes to have that conversation. Brad Hopkins, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling. If you missed that discussion, it will be posted wherever you download podcasts. Coming up here very shortly. Apple, Spotify, 1045thezone.com. Really special stuff there, guys. That was a really, really good conversation. We appreciate Mike for having it here with us.
Yeah, and if you're just tuning in and you missed it, definitely check that out on your podcast, wherever you find it, because it was a really great time just to have Mike share stories and what he's looking forward to next. He answered about everything you could answer when he's moving on to a new journey.
Awesome. Really, really awesome stuff. And, I told Mike at the end there, for a lot of us growing up in this city of any age, Titans radio has been the soundtrack of getting in a hot car after church and there's chicken in the crock pot and you are racing home to watch the game and you get the first quarter, maybe the first couple of drives on Titans radio. And for many other people who are drivers, we have a lot of truck drivers who are diehard listeners of this station and of Titans radio. And that's a really diehard part of the fan base. That's just the way they consume the Tennessee Titans, of just listening to Mike Keith and to Coach Mack and, all the people that have had their fingerprints on Titans radio. But we talk about it a lot. You guys have just a phenomenal presentation of NFL football in this city. And it's not a slight to other teams. It's not a slight to other broadcasters. There's so many talented broadcasters in the National Football League. But the attention to detail, the professionalism, and the way that group at Titans Radio and in that organization, like Mike said, know what you, the fan, is thinking and feeling. It is so special to have a broadcast that resonates with a region and with a state the way Titans Radio has. You can't just manufacture that at the snap of a finger. It's been built over time, and it is really, really cool to see just what Titans Radio has become with the leadership of Mike Keith over the last 25 plus years. Just really, really special.
There's no better fit. If you think about the personality that Nashville has developed, has come from when we first started this journey with the Tennessee Titans, he was never too big or too small for what we were. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like his style, his persona, the way he carried himself, it was synonymous with who we were as an organization. We had never been, ever, a nationally recognized franchise.
Right.
Just for whatever reason, we just failed to hit that mark. And I don't know if that's, if that's something we're even trying to hit. But he was basically a reflection of us as an organization. He also was reflective of us as a team. Mm-hmm. We're always there, right there. And like you said, Will, I mean, from the very beginning of the NFL's presence here in Nashville, the only voice that you ever heard articulating it was his. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be some ginormous shoes to fill. And obviously the next person coming in wouldn't hope to kind of replicate what he did, but develop their own style, because to try and do what Mike Keith did would almost be silly. You've got to do something completely different almost, So, I've appreciated, our relationship from doing our Sirius XM preseason camps, over there, just to even seeing him around the building and watching him take his tray of food over to his table and eat. For 8 seasons, when I was there in the building, let alone the familiar face that I got to see even when I left. I never left the city.
Right.
After having retired, and seeing him on a regular basis was just something that was calming for me. It was something that I still knew, regardless of the revolving door of people coming in and out of that building, its expanse into different levels at the facility and now a new stadium. That was somebody that you always knew.
Yeah, I know you're talking about, the type of, mark he left on you. I know former players like Kevin Byard even tweeted out, I thought it was great. Like, Mike gave me the name mayor of Murfreesboro. And that's something, I remember being somebody who covered Kevin and just we used it on an everyday basis. Like that is something will always stick with him. And that's really special that a man like Mike Keith, can have that kind of impact on these players as well.
Awesome stuff. Again, if you missed it, voice of the Vols, Mike Keith, wish him all the best. So happy for him. And you can get that conversation we just had with him wherever you download podcasts. Coming up here very shortly. We'll let you know when that's up here by the end of the show. Coming up, we've got some Titans news. The Athletics' Diana Rossini says there is a front runner for the Tennessee Titans general manager position. We'll tell you which candidate that is coming up next.
What's going on? 9:02. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Notre Dame punched their ticket to the national championship last night, taking down Penn State 27-24. They will play the winner of tonight's Ohio State and Texas matchup. In Titans news, Jonathan Jones reporting yesterday the NFL has reviewed the description of the Titans general manager position, and the two sides have agreed that the vacant position will be the primary football executive post. Non-GMs cannot be blocked by their current team from accepting interview requests. John Spytek, come on down to get interviewed. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
RKW rolls into the final hour of a snowy Friday morning and a crazy week. Man, all the things we've learned from Monday when we went on air to now. A lot's happened in Nashville, Tennessee this week, and it ends with snow on the ground. Be safe if you're driving out there, please. If you're cozying up with a cup of coffee or hot chocolate at home, we're glad you made us a part of your Friday morning. Brad Hopkins, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling, Robert Walsh, our producer. Great conversations with Brent Hubbs and Mike Keith already this morning. And the great conversation is not over, folks, because Ron Slade joins us in 15 minutes.
And if you missed either of those conversations, they'll be on YouTube momentarily. The podcasts are being uploaded as we speak.
Fantastic.
Lovely.
Fantastic. Esteemed executive producer Robert Walsh at the controls. We have a front runner, according to reports, for the Tennessee Titans general manager position. We've also got a calendar of when these guys are going to virtually meet with the Titans. Diana Rossini, in retweeting Albert Breer's schedule of interviews, says this 42 minutes ago. The Titans are going to go through the process, and she expects Reggie McKenzie, Knoxville native and former Tennessee Volunteer, former Oakland Raiders general manager, to get a lot of support. Rossini, quote, I would consider him to be the lead candidate for Tennessee. Thoughts?
Lead candidate. Wow.
Well, I'm biased because I know the guy.
Oh, you do?
Played against him. We just we go way back.
We talked about that yesterday. Yeah, that's awesome.
So to see him, here in Middle Tennessee, obviously he knows Tennessee very well since he went to school here.
Sure.
It just makes sense. And he's been around. He's been around the block. He's been around, obviously, players. He's kind of developed a style that is his own. Mm-hmm. And I think that he would play nice with Brian Callahan. And ultimately, those two's relationship have to coexist. And, he's been around high-profile head coaches. He's been around up-and-comers. So to be able to kind of establish a dialogue and go over what they both think or whatever the mix is of people that are in, a conglomerate to decide what the fate of this franchise is, I think that he would be a good fit. I've said that about a few candidates moving forward, but, someone that speaks player, someone that also speaks front office, you want to be able to marry the two, and Reggie McKenzie does that.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about he not only played the game and played for a few different places, the Raiders, the Cardinals, the Niners, but he's been, an executive in several places, like the Green Bay Packers. We talk about stabilization, right? And the word, you don't always get to use in NFL front offices, but what everybody wants. Packers are synonymous with that. Oakland Raiders he's been with, Miami Dolphins as of recently. But yeah, his connection as a Knoxville native and a VFL, that also makes it a little fun, of course, for us too, to have that tie.
I think it's a really interesting option. And I think someone who has experience building might matter here. It is often rare getting the opportunity to hire someone who has done it before in this position. Reggie McKenzie certainly has done that. In 2016, he was the NFL's Executive of the Year from Sporting News and PFWA. He built a Raiders team that went 12-4 that season, making the playoffs. It was their first playoff appearance and winning season since they won the AFC in 2002. They had 7 players go to the Pro Bowl that season in 2016, their most since 1991. All 7 of those Pro Bowlers were acquired under Reggie McKenzie with the Raiders at that point. Drafted a lot of Pro Bowl players. 2014 got Khalil Mack in the first round and Derek Carr in the second round. Ding, 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 ding. Quarterback that might be available. That may lend itself to Derek Carr being a bridge quarterback option here. If Reggie McKenzie was the guy, that's someone that Reggie McKenzie has familiarity with. Obviously, that would probably require a post-June 1st designation cut for the Raiders to save $30 million against the cap. With him in 2025, 2026 moving forward to kind of kick that down the road a little bit. But I think Reggie McKenzie is an interesting option. People are going to look at his record as a GM as 40-72 in 7 years. I just think looking at box score scouting at general managers is tricky because you never know the impact of ownership. You never know the coaches. You never know who was making what decisions when you have a general manager and you just look at their record and say, oh, that guy's great or that guy stinks. Like, it's more complicated than that. But was the general manager of the Raiders from 2012 to 2018 and has been with the Miami Dolphins since then.
It's harder for me the further you get away from the field to start playing, like you said, the box score thing.
It's hard even with head coaches to do that in the NFL.
I mean, a head coach has never thrown a football. Not never. I'm saying he doesn't go out there and perform. He doesn't execute. At the end of the day, you'd hope the team would be healthy and you get the right guys in there.
And it's not like college football, right, where a head coach is the GM. And your head coaching record in college football, much more indicative of your success and who you are.
I mean, an AD might be someone that you just talk about now and then because they're usually the guy that hired the head coach. But the head coach he's the show.
Right.
You know what I mean? But here, obviously general manager means something. Head coach means something because it's his staff that is directly responsible for the players and what they do on a regular basis. They create the culture. But for a general manager to come in and start swinging things, I mean, just kind of rings false a little bit. I mean, there's a hierarchy of things, and everybody has to answer to everybody except the owner. He answers to himself. But for the most part, I think that when you try and lay blame as to why a team is successful or not, it can get tricky because there are too many moving parts.
Yeah.
McKenzie also spent 18 years. He was in the Green Bay Packers organization from 1994 to 2011. 18 seasons in Green Bay, helping the Packers compile the second best record in the NFL during that span. Green Bay won 8 division titles, 3 conference championships, and 2 Super Bowls in that time where he was in charge of personnel for the Packers organization and spent time with Chad Brinker. There you go. So a lot of guys with ties to Chad Brinker within this list. I like it. I think, the initial Twitter reaction is always going to be the most negative you're going to find anywhere. And I think social media won't like it because they'll look at the record and say, ugh.
Right.
But I think it's so much more complicated than that. And getting someone who has experience building a roster matters. I think it does. I think you take a risk anytime you bring someone in who's never done the job before. Reggie McKenzie has as much experience as anyone you're going to interview for this position.
It's just not the way the internet works to be supportive of a situation like that. They're always going to find the glass half empty.
Can't always go by that. That's obviously a big part of it is building a roster the right way. I think it is also a big part of it just to have somebody in there that is going to be on the same page as the 2 other playing parts, which is Brian Callahan and Chad Brinker. That's the biggest, to me, thing that you're going to need moving forward.
So the full schedule of interviews from Albert Breer tells us this morning that Reggie McKenzie, Thomas Dimitroff, the former Falcons GM, the other guy with GM experience in this list, and John Spytek of Tampa, they will talk with the Titans today, according to this report. Tomorrow, Ed Dodds of Indy, Matt Berry of Seattle, Terrence Gray from Buffalo, and Kat Hickman from Cleveland. And then Sunday, Mike Bergonzi and Ian Cunningham. I think those 2 guys on Sunday also, by the way, 2 of the strongest candidates you have at your disposal. Bergonzi, an executive in Kansas City who's very highly thought of, and Ian Cunningham, who interviewed for this position a couple of years ago, who has also spoken with the Cardinals and the Chargers, among other teams, and was asked to speak with the Patriots last year and turned them down in April. What's the name, guys, that kind of stands out there to you? Is there a name or two that you are most intrigued by throughout this process, aside from McKenzie, who we've discussed?
I still, again, like from what we spoke about earlier, now that Ian Cunningham is in the mix and supposedly, going to be on the schedule for Sunday, like you said, again, I still kind of like him just in terms of his experience, his connections to winning organizations. I like that, and that's something I feel like is important for if you're going to bring somebody over here. When you are doing that every day in a winning culture, in a winning organization, to me that means something because you will pick up on things, or at least if you're good, you will.
To me, it makes, name brand recognition means something.
Sure.
And Reggie McKenzie does bring that, but so does Thomas Dimitroff. I mean, he's a guy that people are familiar with. We know his track record. So when you've got a storm going on, you're trying to find some levity, at least some consistency, and you kind of know what you're going to get with these kind of guys. So, I understand that people do need a chance to show their worth, their value, and a first-time person in that position, sometimes can do a really good job. You just don't know that until they get into the position, right? But sometimes those people that you understand who have done things that have a track record, that familiarity makes you feel more safe.
The guy I'm most interested in, I don't know how we are not talking more about John Spytek, the heir to the Spytek fortune. I don't know if y'all are familiar with his family, but they have created cameras, microphones, drones, any type of spy technology you can think of. This guy's dad made it. Think of all the ways you could cheat if this guy was your general manager. He would have every draft room bugged. He would have every workout, a drone flying over, any practice, any new play you would know about. John Spytek needs to be the new general manager because if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Spytek 2025.
Oh my goodness.
Is it ironic that his name is Spytek and he's made his name, made his fortune in that space? That's crazy.
That's what I'm saying, man. And no one's caught him. No one's caught him yet. He's got a squeaky clean resume. No one even thinks that this guy's a cheater, which is the perfect time to cheat.
Yeah, he could bug the best.
That's great.
I think you're joking.
I know.
May never know.
I was kind of like looking it up. Like,
no, he's joking.
Is he 100%
not actually
joking?
a spy family?
Yeah, John, that's what they want you to think. I would, if I had a Spytek family, I would also erase it.
You know what? They're hiding in plain sight. It's a great way to hide in plain sight. I mean, you guys know I bowled a 232, but you wouldn't think it because you think it's so obvious that my last name is Bowling. Be like, no, he can't actually be good at bowling.
Right.
Well, I bowled a 232, which is, my fun fact that I like to tell people.
Their original last name was
Really?
John Espionage, but that was too on the nose.
Oh, my.
So what you're saying is Bill Belichick to Tampa once.
Perfect.
He's done at UNC. I love it. Coming up, Ron Slay will join us. 3HL, SEC Network, just friend of the program. Friend of you, the Titans fan, the Vols fan. He will join us after this. Hey, what's up? It's Will Bowling. I want to update you with some exciting news from my friends at Brentwood Hearing Center. Their team of doctors of audiology are always committed to providing patients with the most recent hearing device technology. And recently, their leadership team attended the launch of a revolutionary hearing aid, the Phonak Sphere, which is dedicated to helping patients hear well in situations when there is extensive background noise. There's a computer chip in this thing that completely addresses speech in noise. It's going to help you when you're out at dinner at a noisy restaurant. You hear the booth behind you, but not the person in front of you. Maybe you're visiting with friends or clients at a cocktail party or even attending sporting events. This stuff really works. And if you're having difficulty hearing conversation when there's background noise, give them a call today and schedule your demonstration of this industry-changing hearing aid technology, which also connects directly to your smartphone and television. 615-377-0420 or visit them online at BrentwoodHearingCenter.com. That's 377-0420. Brentwood Hearing Center. Better hearing, better life. RKW 104.5 The Zone continues. What a fun show.
A little bit of everything.
Brad Hopkins, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling, joined by a third VFL. We've hit for a hat trick of VFLs this morning. Through the power of Zoom, welcome 3HL and SEC Networks, Ron Slay. Slay, what's up? Good morning.
What's happening, good people? What's going on?
How we doing?
What's up,
What's going on? First of all, why y'all got me following Mike Keith though? Why y'all didn't change? Why y'all didn't change Mike Keith time slot, man? Y'all put me on after the greatness of Mike Keith and him leaving and going to join Vol Nation, man, and then want me to come in. What I'm supposed to do? What I'm supposed to do?
I'll say this, Slay. We got it because that was the emotional part of the show. Now we're on the roller coaster where we put the hands up and it gets crazy because the roof comes off and our toupees and wigs come off.
I like it, KK. That's a good way to spend it. So you're a professional. So what's happening? What's up, B-Hop, man?
What's going on, Mr. Slay? Hey, listen, what does that mean, though, for you, someone that actually spent time at Rocky Top, to hear Mike Keith now taking over the reins to calling not only football, but basketball, my man?
Yeah.
Man, I'm loving it. Like, I'm all in for it. Like, I can't wait to see it take place. And if you've been able to be around Mike Keith, I heard him talk with you guys. And if you get him by himself, like, it's almost one of them moments where you go, like, okay, all right, Mike, I'm cool, man. Once he get to talk about basketball, he gets on a roll. It's like, Mike, why are you doing football?
Right.
That's the question I gotta ask. Like, what are you doing, dog? I can hear the passion in your voice. And for him to be able to keep up with it, with all the stuff that he has going on, man, that shows you where his passion lies, man. But you hear in the little piece that they put out, the highlight video of him talking about being at the Ernie and Bernie show. That's enough right there to go on and light that candle and for it to burn forever, you know. And then you start to see good teams come back around. So it's always been exciting, especially for a person that's been able to be right there and watch it grow as it has. And him to be able to go up there, and I think the most intriguing part about all of what Mike Keith is doing is, man, you very seldom get to cement your legacy twice in a lifetime. You know? Like,
right.
This is,
Yeah.
dude, he went with the Titans for 25 plus years. And as synonymous as B-Hop and his bunch was with the Titans, Mike Keith they run parallel.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you heard B-Hop talking about, man, them 8 years, like, dog, I watched him go over there, eat his lunch. Like, y'all walked hand in hand with that. So to see the impact that he has with the fans, with that franchise, and across the NFL, and knowing when you walk away from something like that, hey, man, usually you're going off in the sunset. You got your cowboy hat up. You're toasting to everybody, going past the corral. They're giving you bills. You're looking at the brothel. You're like, no, I can't go over there. I'm married, so I'm going to keep on going on my horse. But usually you're riding on off into the sunset. This man gets to go down the street to the other town, park his horse, and be able to get the sheriff badge and go in there and do the exact same thing. And he's young enough to be able to do another career and be able to cement another legacy where he's following his mentor, like not filling the shoes, but he's able to follow his mentor in John Ward. Man, that is a dream come true. So I think that's the most amazing part, man. You don't get that opportunity, man.
I love Ron Slay's analogies so much.
I know.
You were the
It's so
only
fun.
one that could have made that comparison and have it stick the landing the way you did. So kudos to you. Just absolutely terrific. But Slay, I know it is cool. I know you've watched it, through Ramon's perspective the way we have as well, of just the professionalism and the standard of Titans radio. And you're in the same boat that I am, right? We're Vols fans and we're Titans fans. We're Nashville natives. Mm-hmm. We've seen Titans radio become an institution from the day that it took the airwaves for the first time, and they're knocking on doors of radio affiliates around the Mid-South to say, I want you guys to buy into what we're doing. And we're selling you a proof of concept that, we are going to build from the ground up. It's been so cool to see that product become what it was. And Slay, I know you know as well as anybody just the brand of what the Titans are and Titans radio. We've seen it through so many different perspectives. People in this city cannot take that for granted. And I'm thankful that people don't take it for granted how good we have it with the way that crew has operated since day one.
Yeah, you hit it on the head, Will. Like, man, when the Titans came to Nashville, I think I was, 13, 14, somewhere 15 or something like that. And I'm looking at them, watching them come to the city, and you want to watch the Titans. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was bigger than life. We had colleges with primetime athletes, whether it be from TSU all the way to Vanderbilt, and people going pro. You had semi-pro basketball teams, and you had the Arena League and things like that, where you were able to get close enough. The Vols were on down the street, so that wasn't in your city, but you could be a fan of that as well. But to be right there in your city when the Titans came, that was bigger than life.
Right.
So you wanted to see it all the time. You wanted to be where they were going to be. And for Mike Keith and them to get out there on the road, man, and also to be able to tap into the community, it made you feel a part of it. So that carried over to not only wanting to watch it, you wanted to hear it. You wanted to be a part of it. So what Titans Radio brought to it was a different dynamic. I never thought I would ever watch the game and try to sync up the radio with the TV. That's what they was doing back in the 70s and in the 60s. Like, sitting around the radio, listening to games, they had no other choice. Like, you know what I'm saying? They ain't had the TV or the color TV in there with the rabbit ears on there trying to get the signal or nothing like that. Everybody was around them. So that right there, man, to bring that back and feel that as an adult, man, I don't want to watch the Titans game without having the radio in my ear of some sort. That's what Titans Radio did as far as changing the landscape of it, for me anyway.
So let me tell you how important it was to have Mike Keith as a presence when we moved up here. I was 5 years in, already a veteran, moving from Houston, thinking, where the hell are we going, to Nashville? Are you serious?
Yeah.
And then to have Mike Keith be our spokesperson. Do you understand me? Our spokesperson.
Yeah. Right.
Introducing a new era of sports here. Sure, college football reigns supreme here. And I'm saying it doesn't today, but I'm just saying it was a new iteration of football to have the NFL's presence, right? And it was him speaking our names. It was him introducing who we were. It was him who was basically articulating the growth that we would have into the team that you see today, good or bad. So he was super important, the role that he played in identifying who we were and allowing this community to get familiar with who we were.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And guess what? Y'all did it. It was intertwining. If y'all were coming up here, he was the person for us coming together, the community and the Titans. He was the person right there stamping your passport when you came through. When you got to come through customs right there. You got to come through Mike Keith. You know what I mean? You're gonna be a Titans fan.
Yeah.
And the Titans itself. Y'all want to be in the community? Y'all better get with Mike Keith and see what he's doing and get out on the road with him. And the community, if you want to find out what the Titans doing, you better ride in and go through it and show your Titans card and see if it gets stamped. If it don't get stamped, we're going to shut you away, man. That's what it is. So you hit it on the head, B.R.
I love it. Ron Slay at 3HL and SEC Network, our guest. We will talk some hoops and get into Tennessee and Tex. That is happening tomorrow night in Austin, Texas. But Slay, I wanted to ask you about the Titans, though, and the GM search. I know we just got done speaking about Knoxville native Reggie McKenzie being named the front runner for the job, according to the Athletics' Diana Rossini, who is reportedly interviewing today with the Tennessee Titans. What do you want in the next general manager, and what's kind of your reaction to the former Austin East Roadrunner in Reggie McKenzie being an option here for the GM job?
Man, I think it's a great opportunity. I'm more so in the wait and see. I have no feelings. I have no emotions. I have no thoughts. Because I think, man, we walked through the last 2 years, 3 years. I've had all those expectations, and all those expectations have been let down because it's not what it seems to be. So instead of doing that, I'm just going to sit back on my hands and wait and see. And if they can pull me out, they can pull me out. If they can't, then I'll continue to sit back and watch and cheer for the Titans from afar. I'll always cheer for them. But as far as the GM goes, man, you got to show me what it is. Like, I don't need a glorified manager or a glorified scout when coming into this situation. If that's the case, then say we're going to put you in the head of the scouting department and create a new position that the league hasn't seen, a new president of scouting. Like, I don't know, do they got a president of scouting? Maybe that's what they should go with. I'm just trying to figure out, like, what does it entail? I heard y'all talking about it earlier, and I put in the chat. Yeah, we heard that before. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They're giving us the details and the description of the role, and it's like, dang, I thought did I just hear that? Oh, am I crazy? The only thing that can run parallel to that is the Twilight Zone, and I don't like to be in the Twilight Zone. I used to turn it off when it came on because I was scared of the intro of it, and that's what it feels like I'm doing. I'm watching the intro of the Twilight Zone again. So I think whoever gets it, it's a great opportunity for them, though, because this is a rare job. You know what I'm saying? So you got to take advantage of it and hopefully be able to parlay that into something bigger. But just what power do you have? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not comfortable with walking into a situation looking over my shoulder. You know what I'm saying? That, like, it's understood if I got a boss, that's cool. But I don't know, man. It's been a lot for me the last 2 weeks. I don't know what's going on no more, man.
Hey, Ron Slay with us, obviously. If you don't know his voice, you might be under a rock at this point because he is the voice, right? Of 104.5. Slay Dog, when it comes to, though, this position, no matter whatever it is, they're going to hire it, and they're going to have to hire it soon because they've got a lot on their plate when it comes to the first-round pick, getting this draft class right. What do you feel like at this point, this Titans identity, they're aiming for it to be?
That's a great question, KK. I think, man, you've had the privilege of being up under the shadow of Derrick Henry for so long.
Yeah.
It's whatever he put out, hard nosed, go to work every day, put the work in, see the success and the rewards. Don't talk about it. You go out there and you go and get it, and you show the resilience that you have. With him walking away and going somewhere else, I love what Big Jeff brings. And I think he can be that guy, but it's usually a guy that's the quarterback. We saw it with Derrick Henry. We saw it with the offensive line when they're intact and they're moving. That's always been the identity of the Titans. The O-line, the D-line, a running back outside of a guy like Steve McNair being that quarterback. But you found blue-collar trench monsters that were going to carry you. That was going to be the identity. Whether it be on the back end of the defense, they were resembling what was up front on the defense. And then when you look at the offense, it always resembled how nasty you were up front with the offensive line. So that was always the identity. That hasn't been it as of late. So I don't know what the identity is. I think that's been the biggest struggle.
Sure.
When you walk away and we look at the national media and the way they speak about the Titans, if you ask them, like, what is their identity? They don't know. So that's why it's always a wag of the finger or a laugh or cover your mouth when you start to talk about the Titans. And we always wondering locally, like, oh, why are they always looking at the Titans like this? Well, who is your mainstay? Who's highlighted? Who's your spotlight on? You know what I'm saying? So identity, I don't know. It has to be created. And that goes from the president to the GM all the way down to the coaching and the players. You heard B.O.B. was talking about anybody that's been around Ozzie Newsome.
Yeah.
You know what Ozzie Newsome has? Identity, regardless of where he went. You know what the Ravens, it could be a little man from Mars. He followed the Ravens for 2 years. He's going to go back and say, man, they play hard and they hit hard. Sheesh. I don't know what it is about them, but the defenses they call a card. Now you throw a guy in like Lamar Jackson and you add Derrick Henry. Then you got the flash and the spotlight, you know what I mean? But their calling card is defense and grit and hitting hard. They leave you black and blue coming out the game. So I don't know what the Titans' identity is.
Yeah, it's funny when you mention teams like the 49ers versus the Bears when they were, the monsters of the Midway. The physicality, Slay, you know this, it is actually synonymous with good teams. Let me segue into hoops here because I heard Rick Barnes commenting on what Jimmy Dykes was saying the other day, just about maybe there's an issue of physicality. I mean, is this a veteran enough team that can get rattled and maintain that poise when they face adversity like they did against Florida? It just seemed like their presence in the paint wasn't what it needed to be, for them to win a ball game like that. So what did you see?
I thought, man, coming out of it, it was one of those situations where you listen, and this is just human nature, especially when you're dealing with younger athletes. You listen to what Coach Cal said coming out of the Arkansas game. He said that, man, they just manhandled us. They were way more physical than us. Like, that's good and well, and that's easier to do at home, especially when you got younger guys that have not been on the road. Now, you take this same bunch, and when I'm speaking about younger guys, I'm speaking of younger guys like Milicic, who's this his first time playing in the SEC. Felix Acapara, his first time playing in the SEC. Cade Phillips has been in it, but not as experienced as far as playing in the SEC when you're looking at the front court. Now, Florida just played Kentucky and gave up 106 points. They have a coach in Todd Golden who understands that regardless of how many points you score, you're going to have to be able to stop someone. So we can always shoot the ball. We can always score. When we come in here, this is a great opportunity to show how defensively minded we can be and physical we can be. They went down there to the Swamp, which is a very difficult place to play. I said coming into it, the front court for Florida is one of the best in the nation. They have 4 guys 6'10" and above that they can throw at you that are old, that are bigger than they are my bad. They are more athletic in the bigs. They have touch. They have a relentless motor, and they're rangy. So they're not going to stop. So the little lulls you have of not being on the road in the SEC and knowing how it is, it came to pay dividends. So while you looking around, you trying to box out and you looking instead of putting a body on somebody, they crashing the boards and you give them second opportunities. They have a guy vying for SEC Player of the Year in Walter Clayton Jr., who is an experienced guard in this league, and a guy like Elijah Martin, who's played in the Final Four and knows exactly what it is. Will Richards, a guy that transferred from Belmont's been in Florida situation for 2 years now. He understands exactly what it is. Todd Golden has a way to play. And who better in the SEC outside of Mississippi State to show that you're a physical team than playing against a Rick Barnes team? Mm-hmm. It was a perfect storm in a sense. Now, 30 points, I don't think that will happen again against Tennessee. I think when you look at it, they shot, I think, 1 for 19 uncontested shots. You can't do that.
Wow.
And I wouldn't bet on them to do that either. But you look at it walking into it, man, this Florida team is a team that's tough. And Tennessee played good defense. There wasn't no 90-point game or anything.
Right.
Like, you just couldn't throw the ball in the ocean. So that's what made the biggest separation of it all. And the physicality has to be matched. It was a good eye-opening experience for the front court. I would hope that they show going into Texas exactly who they are, but it's going to be up for somebody else to help fill that void other than Milicic, who's rebounding like a maniac right now. Felix Okapar is close to 7 foot. Some point, brother, you got to play like you 7 foot. Mm-hmm. Gabe Phillips, I understand the shoulder injury is right there and is limiting your game, but Darlington Dubois, you want some time, brother? It's an opportunity with the body that you're built, like that playing for somebody. It's an opportunity for you to get in there and play some minutes at the 4.
Totally. Absolutely get it. Ron Slay, great insight as always on Tennessee and SEC hoops. Slay, we'll leave you with this one. A couple of big top 20 matchups coming up this weekend. You got Alabama and A&M. Kentucky, Mississippi State. Hey, people might look at Mississippi State coming to Vanderbilt and say, yo, wow, okay, Vanderbilt team picked last of the conference, right? Mississippi State, they've been good. That is a great road win for Mississippi State, especially the way they did it. That is a strong Vanderbilt team with a lot of experience. I know a lot of them are new, and we'll talk more about them as the season continues, Slade. But those two games specifically in prime time this Saturday night, what stands out to you there?
Huge win for Mississippi State, man. I picked Vanderbilt to beat them with Mississippi State coming up here because I wasn't sure that offense would travel outside of the hump. But even if Josh Hubbard doesn't go bananas, if he can get 15 a game, you got guys put around him, Coach Jan's team, where you put guys around him that can help him. Cam Matthews with a year of experience. Keyshawn Murphy with a year of experience. Sean Jones grew up right before our eyes. So Mississippi State is a team to reckon with. They will be in the top 10. They're knocking on the door. They play defense, and they feel like they're the underdog. So that's going to be good. And it was a duel last year when Kentucky went down there. Reed Shepherd and Josh Hubbard had, a duel. One of the duels that was one of the best for the last 10 years in the SEC going back and forth. So that right there is to show who's the other one, A&M and who?
A&M, Alabama.
A&M and Alabama. Man, I just called Alabama's game, dude. When I say loaded,
crazy.
Man, they 10 deep. They 10 deep. Man, they so deep. When we was talking to Nate Oates was up there saying, man, I'm trying to figure out what we should do with Darion Reed, man. He got a little bit of an injury. We don't know if we should redshirt him. Today's the last day. And he goes out and has one of the best nights. It's like, dude, and this man coming that 8th, 9th man. Like, what? You so loaded. You thinking about redshirting the guy who's exploded the most for you. So it's going to be fun to watch that, man. Well, hopefully Wade Taylor can play. But Texas A&M and Buzz Williams, they got some tricks up their sleeve. So you talk about physicality. That's another team that's going to bring it. Throughout the SEC, you got teams, man, that's going to hang their head on defense, and that's all the teams going to upper echelon.
Slay, let's get a daggum hotel tour. What's SEC Network?
Oh, my goodness.
What's you living like over there?
AC Hotel, man. You see, I'm fresh about the bed, you know what I mean? My suit, you see them cold-blooded white cheddar Cheetos right there, man.
Yeah.
Gotta have them bad boys, man. Hey, you little baby couch back there. They ain't doing nothing, man.
Hey, I like that.
You know, it ain't too much burn, man.
Hey, what the view like? What the dang? They got you posted up over there. What's the shower like? What's the bathtub
I
like?
will show you, man. But you know, it's a little fog over the city. I will let you see the Queen City is over there in the distance.
That.
As long as they're treating you right. I'm just trying to make sure my client is well represented by the SEC Network now.
And I appreciate you. The mouse spares no expense.
The mouse, I love it. He is Ron Slay. You get him on television at SEC Network. You get him on 3HL 3 to 6. Of course, you're on the zone. Slay, we'll let you go, man. Appreciate you making time for us. No busy week and having a blast watching you, man. Keep crushing it.
See you, Slay.
No doubt. Y'all stay safe down there in the snow, man. They said 24 was shut down eastbound, so y'all be careful down there, man.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Slay Dog.
We appreciate you. There he is.
Thanks, y'all.
Ron Slay with us here this morning, talking some SEC hoops, talking Titans, talking life, as always. There is a developing NFL story. A coach a lot of people thought might be gone ain't leaving.
Ooh.
We think. We'll tell you who it is next. RKW on 104.5 The Zone, wrapping up the show and wrapping up the week. And some NFL news this morning from Tom Pelissero. Some analysis on the Cotton Bowl tonight. And some other show news as well that we'll get to you coming up in just a moment. You'll want to hear what we have to tell you coming up in about 5 minutes. Unless something changes in 5 minutes. But stay tuned. Anyway, let's get to the NFL news we talked about before the break. I'm going to keep the people hanging on to what we have to tell you coming up in a few minutes. Tom Pelissero says of NFL media, after several days of discussion about the 2024 season and the future, Cowboys owner Jerry Jones and coach Mike McCarthy remain open to moving forward together, and the sides are expected to open talks today on a new contract to keep him in Dallas. There have been no negotiations yet, and still are other issues to work out. His contract is set to expire on Tuesday, giving Dallas a few more days to work out a deal. Otherwise, he would be free to pursue other opportunities. A bit surprised to hear that Jerry Jones wants to keep Mike McCarthy around.
And other teams have already expressed interest as well.
That's what makes it interesting, Bert, is because when they basically shut down all conversations with Mike McCarthy and the Bears, you kind of knew, why would you be doing that if you didn't feel that he had a future in Dallas? And of course, that's been, a topic of debate, whether or not, more of the blame should fall at his feet for this team not reaching the marks that, as talented as it is, it hasn't yet.
Right.
You know what I mean? But then again, you've got to look at his consistency during the regular season and putting that team in a position, to get into the playoffs. And that's been pretty regular. It's just really, he's got a formula, and I think that he has a good connection with the guys that he's coaching. But when they did deny the other teams from being able to talk with him, to me, that was an indicator that, hey, look, they're more happy with what he's been able to do versus disappointed with what he's been able to not accomplish.
Yeah, it just, Mike McCarthy is such an interesting figure in terms of what he really is as a coach, right? Because we saw what he did in Green Bay. He won a Super Bowl, but I think a lot of people credit, the quarterback at the time as a main part of why you won that. And he just really still hasn't been able, with some really good talent in Dallas, to get to the point where they need to get to. And so you still have those questions. But Jerry Jones, where in the past he hasn't been patient with things, clearly, according to this report, and if he does stay, he's giving him a little bit more time. Which maybe that's something to learn about Jerry. But when it's all said and done, guys, I just look at the Dallas Cowboys. As long as Jerry Jones is there, I just think it's Jerry's job. Like that, Jerry to me is the coach, the GM, everything, because that's just kind of what he's put himself out there to always be. And it always revolves around him.
It's probably the most unique job in the market.
Hands
because
down.
Of who the Cowboys are.
Yeah.
America's team. I mean, there are tours that go through during practice. There's helicopters landing.
Right.
And, it's just, to be a head coach there, you've got to have a different set of circumstances that you're working with, right? But the thing that resonates to me is the fact that it doesn't seem, through all the disappointment that we've talked about with the Dallas Cowboys, that Mike McCarthy has not lost the locker room. His message hasn't gone stale. Those guys, even down the stretch when they got eliminated from the playoffs, they still showed up and played. And if you still have that in existence, then you still have something that you can work with. There is hope that next year things will, finally come together. That's what Cowboy fans are hoping.
Absolutely.
Cotton Bowl's tonight.
Yes, it is.
Again, I'm burying the lead of what we're about to tell you about coming up here in a minute. Quinn Ewers in Texas against Will Howard, Ohio State. Will Howard, Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Ibuka, Carnell Tate, Quinshot Judkins, that whole offense against the Thorpe Award winner, Jahdae Barron. A spectacular defensive backfield that the Texas Longhorns have, for my money, maybe the best defense in college football against right now the best offense in college football. What do you think happens tonight?
Ohio State, dominate. I don't know what else to say. That's all they've proven in the postseason so far once the light turned on after Michigan. But I'd like it to be a good game, guys. I just feel like they've put themselves on a different level right now on both sides of the ball.
The only thing that Texas has going for it is that it's not that far from Austin, and they're going to pack that joint. Now, Ohio State does travel. Their fan base will travel.
Yeah, they will.
But this is in the backyard of the Longhorns, a fan base that, not only extends throughout the entire state of Texas, but obviously that whole region down there.
Yeah.
And the fact that it took them a couple of overtimes to get to this point, sure, that doesn't seem like they have that kind of momentum, but they will have if there is a home field advantage, they will have that. despite them being a less talented team, despite them not having the momentum that Ohio State has, having exercised those demons, whooping Oregon, convincingly winning the Big Ten, or excuse me, possibly could have won the Big Ten because they were up in Oregon when they lost that game in the last few minutes. They had a chance, right? So, but I do think that Ryan Day has probably the best position right now to actually play against Marcus Freeman. In the national championship. I think it'd be
fun. Two big brands.
Yep.
I think Ohio State wins tonight by 10. Okay. That's my guess. I think it's a 2-score game. I think it's close enough. I don't see Quinn Ewers in Texas being able to go pound for pound, blow for blow with Ohio State offensively if Ohio State is still itself, right? Like there's a scenario here where the Texas defense can get some pressure on Will Howard. They can intercept a couple of passes and make Will Howard be at his worst again. But Texas has its 2 first-round offensive tackles back again. And Cameron Williams, who should be back in this game and didn't play against Arizona State, against Jack Sawyer, Tui Moloau, the edge rushers for Ohio State. Like every matchup in this game is like prime time against prime time. It is loaded. Just every single place that you go. Interesting, reading Pro Football Focus's preview, Texas only runs man coverage about 16% of the time. They love zone. Jeremiah Smith has the second most receiving yards against zone coverage of any Power 4 receiver, and the other one's Travis Hunter, who has more. 763 yards against zone for Jeremiah Smith this year. I think it's a good matchup for him specifically, and I think Ohio State's the best team in college football. I don't know that it's really close. I mean, considering the number they have in their favor tonight and the fact that FanDuel's already put out they'd be a 9.5-point favorite over Notre Dame.
Jeez.
I mean, that's Vegas
just crazy
and the sportsbook
to think about
agree.
in a championship.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
It totally makes sense. All right. Well, after consulting and after figuring out what is going on this show, the announcement we have is tune in Monday.
There we
go. I know you're going to be mad at me for making you wait and that
Sorry,
being
guys.
it. But you will understand why on Monday. Some kind of good stuff on the way. Mm-hmm. So there you go. Looking forward to talking Titans and whatever happens to the GM search. We will have some good conversation on Monday's show. That's all I will be able to say.
I love it.
At the moment. Brad, thank you for joining us. Appreciate you.
Brad.
Anytime.
Always good to sub out one excellent professional offensive lineman for another.
Yeah, at least this one's got an all-pro.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Damn, Bert.
Wow. See, you know what? It's Steelers-Ravens weekend.
I know.
Bert had to lash out.
I didn't expect anything less.
That wasn't Bert talking. That was inner Bert getting ready for tomorrow night when the Ravens take on the Steelers. We'll talk about that. Appreciate you joining us. Appreciate the week. Please be safe today.
Yes.
Mean it. Go a little bit slower. It's fine. We're in the South. We don't know how to drive in this, and it's okay to admit that. We will talk to you Monday morning. You'll want to be there here on 104.5 The Zone.